Hey, what's going on, everybody? The one viewer that I got. I guess that Sunday is a relatively slow day for people to tune in. So, last week we were designing assets, and uh, throughout the duration of the weekdays, I was actually down with the flu. So, we're going to be continuing that this week. And my drawing tablet's actually working this week, so that's a plus. Which means I get to use my pen. And yeah, I didn't get to do that last time I live streamed, so I'm just opening up my project file now, and I know that there's not a whole lot that I actually have to do for design purposes, so we may actually go into the animation software today and rig this character model. So, alright, so let me just first start off by showing you what I did get done within the week. Wasn't a lot of progress because, like I said, I had the flu, so I didn't work too much on it. Alright, what did I do? Okay, so legs, the face, inside mouth. Okay, so this is going to look super strange to you. Let's just take away this layer. So, and let's go ahead and dark that out too. This is the teeth that I ended up doing. I made an asset for just one of these teeth, that way I could arrange them any way I wanted to do. So what we may end up doing today is creating an individual tooth from a bird's eye view. That way we have that for when the jaw is exposed. Trying to think of a situation in which I can explain this a little bit better. So imagine the camera is looking down at this character and he's got his mouth wide open, and you don't see the tooth from a straightaway perspective, you see it from a bird's eye view. That will be the reason why we need a bird's eye view tooth, which I'll get to that in a minute. I may actually go into animating eyes as well. I'll probably open up a separate project and start working on hand positions, mouth positions, maybe eye positions, because facial expressions are going to be pretty difficult to nail, and I want to make sure that I'm covered in that field. So we've got our eyes, we have our teeth. Yeah, let's just start working here. Oh, one last thing, the lips. I did the top lip separate, and I only did half of it. So, like, the left side of it is the asset that I created, and I did it because there's a lot of different facial expressions that can be mapped out based upon lip position. So I took that into consideration when making the lip, but alright. So first things first, we gotta, like I said, cover the teeth. I'm gonna make a bird's eye view, and I finally get to draw. I am so excited about that. Finally. Yeah, the pen is actually working. It's so good. I didn't get to do this last time we streamed, so I just want to grab the general shape of this tooth. So I'm gonna kind of like trace over myself. Try to imagine what the tooth would look like from a bird's eye view. Whoa, okay, that was weird. Lasso tool was working really weird. Alright, now that we've got that, we can come in and grab the color out of here. I'm not sure if that... There we go. And I'm going to make another layer underneath the outline that we just drew. Color this in like so. And let's see. So it's got this color towards the bottom and the top. So we're going to come in with white next. And just kind of... just gently dab in here. And... boy, that does not look like a very convincing tooth. Let's go to my outline layer and then put a little white in here too. Actually, no, let's grab this color. That might work a little bit better. There we go. Now that looks like a tooth from a bird's eye view. And essentially that's the only part that we need for the mouth, and the mouth is completely concluded at that point. So just like we did last time we streamed, I'm going to go ahead and seal off those layers, grab this layer, and expand it. I don't know where this extra bit came in, but we'll get rid of that. Let's move it more towards the center of the screen. Black that out and save. Same thing that we did last time we streamed. I'm gonna save it to my character folder, and then let's save it as tooth from above. Great. So done with that. Don't need that anymore. What we do need, however, is the feet. I remember that from last time we didn't get any feet done. So now we're gonna have to draw the feet, probably two different perspectives of the feet. I would say the inside foot, inside side foot. That's a tongue twister. Inside side foot, and then inside outside foot. Wow. I need to come up with some better technical terms for this. Open up a new layer. We're gonna have to also do some measurements on this. So let's see. I'm trying to establish a height for the foot and also a length. So let's just, well, I first need to get the black outline. Let's do I have a line tool? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay. And then for foot height, we're probably going to go about half of the height of this. So this is going to be foot length. And we're going to flip it on its side. And then this is going to be foot height. Ooh, that actually looks too high. Well, maybe not. I mean, if we push it towards the back, that could work out. Okay, so this is just a measurement layer, really. And what I want to do is come in with another layer and maybe make this a little bit transparent. That way I can still draw over it. And so then we're just going to draw the general shape of the foot. Oops, I'm still on that same layer. I want to grab my line tool as well. So there's a slight curvature, and then as it goes back to the heel, it straightens out once more, comes to a little bit of a curve, and that's where the foot's gonna reach its maximum height. And it also comes to a little bit of a point, so we're basically building it like a ramp for a professional skater. And I kind of actually like the shape of that. I'm really satisfied with that. I think I'm going to add a little bit more height to it though by giving it like a little, the sole of the shoe. Yeah. That'll look a lot better whenever I go to animate it, I think. Just making it less plain and dull, you know? Okay, now we can work on general detail, which is this line right here. We're going to go ahead and add that. Let's say it's right about here. Then it's going to go all the way down. Alright, so now we don't need our measurement layer anymore. Now we just need to color underneath that layer. But before we do that, I actually want to duplicate this layer because one's going to be our inside foot view, and then the other one is going to be our outside foot view. So we're going to duplicate that layer, and then we're going to mirror it. And now you see it's been cloned over here. And we're going to put it there. We're also going to... Okay. Boy, that looks weird. Yeah, it looks really weird that way. It's like it's reversed of what it needs to be. So, we can easy fix. Easy fix. Let's just put this over here. Yeah, put it right there. And then grab this one and put it right there. Alright, so now it doesn't look so weird. If I didn't fix that, it would have bugged me for a while. So now we just essentially copy what we've got going on here, like this element of shading here. So we're going to need this color. And which foot? Okay, so that's the foot we're dealing with right now. We're going to come in and do an outline. And we're just tracing over the line that we made for the upper layer, the most visible layer. And this is really why I choose to work with Sketchbook, is because it has a line tool, and I cannot draw a straight line to save my life. You would think that with me being an artist, that wouldn't be such an issue for me, but it's been an issue pretty much all my life. I cannot draw straight lines. I struggle with them. If I'm doing it like pen to paper, then I need either a protractor or a ruler next to me at all times. Otherwise, I can't get it right. So now we should be able to, oh, yep, fill. Now we can also duplicate that layer and mirror it. And this just saves us a lot of work. we get to, well, we need to make sure that this layer is underneath. Oh, hold up here. Where did that go? Wow. Sometimes this program is an asshole. Okay. Now that I've got it in the right order for layers, I'm going to just sneak it in here so we don't have to do that again. Alright, so that's a really nifty way to kind of cut some production time down. Now, what I am trying to do is copy the shading that I have from over here. So now I need to grab this color, and let's see which one we're working with here. Okay, so this is the one that we need to add more shading to. And I'm simply going to do that by using my line tool once more. And then I guess just freehand draw. And while I'm doing this, I might as well just talk to you, throw out some opinions of mine as an artist and what I've observed, how people behave over the years. People shame tracing a lot, but I disagree. I think that especially when you want to go for realism, tracing is borderline necessary. Now, I'm not saying that you want to trace everything that you draw. That's certainly not the case. You definitely don't want to plagiarize or anything like that. But what I'm talking about is, like, if you're doing concept art for a newer character that you've made, but you want to do it with some measure of realism. I mean, I'll take a Sports Illustrated model or a a picture of wrestling from WWE or an action figure, just something to make sure that I'm anatomically correct. That way, both my mind, like my eye and my mind, agree with what I'm drawing. This necessarily isn't the case with this model that I'm making here, because it's a cartoon model, and so there's naturally going to be some exaggeration going on there. But for the most part, I just don't agree with people being so harsh upon others who decide to trace. In a lot of cases, people who aren't artists want to be creative and make something interesting. So, that's another reason why you might want to trace, is because maybe you're not as artistically inclined as everybody else who can, just freehand, nice smooth shapes. Maybe you're tracing like I mentioned earlier, maybe you just can't draw straight lines. So my fill-in tool isn't want to work, or it doesn't want to work right now, so I'm going to do it manually and color everything in. Only got to do it once, so not that big of a deal. And since I'll be working on hands and probably a mouth today, I don't know if we're going to get to animation or not. I doubt it. That'll most likely happen later on. I didn't figure that I would have a lot to do on stream today, and that's why I figured we might get to animation. But now that I think about it, we're probably not going to get to animation because of the mouth and the hand pieces that I still lack. Now, if you'll notice, I'm leaving quite a bit of that gray layer behind, and that's just because the contrast really makes these shapes pop. If you have that one subtle line there, then it's more noticeable that there's a ridge, and I just kind of want to top it off. Yeah, so that looks like more realistic shading. If I wanted to make it really be realistic, then I'd just kind of shade. I'd make it a what's the word I'm looking for? I would make it a gradient. So I would take it away more and more from that. So that's one layer. That's the inside view of the shoe. Now we want to go ahead and work on the outside view, which is going to be a lot more simple, I think. One thing I want to do, though, is, so with this part of the shoe, the line kind of goes down and then curves back inward on itself, so I might want to make that visible here just a little bit. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to erase that access that we got there. And there. So we can combine that layer and then come over here. Basically just do the same thing. We're going to copy that shape that's going on, and I think that it runs perfectly down the middle. This happens a lot. I second guess myself. It's all good. So this runs all the way up the line of that shoe, and then it kind of comes to a point. So I'm going to manually color it in because I don't really trust the fill tool. It's not really working for me recently. And there you have it. It's not the best looking, but it's something, it generally remains faithful to that shape. I don't know if I did a backside view of the shoe. I don't think I did. So we're gonna probably take care of that. Let me think for a second how I want to approach this. I want to combine my shoe layers, the outline in the back of the shoe. Let's grab the lasso tool. So we want to get a portion of this. Yeah, we definitely want to get a portion of that. And then let's probably paste it. Drag it out here. Now, what I love about the paste tool by default is that when you're pasting, it automatically creates a new layer. I don't know if that's a setting or if it's something that Sketchbook just does on its own, but I really like it, and it saves me some time. I've duplicated that layer, and I've also mirrored it. And now we're just gonna kind of bring it in and overlap it with the layer underneath. Maybe you want to edit or tweak it just a little bit so it fits in there just right. What I'm going to end up doing is erasing a little bit of this underneath here, and then I'll come back here and erase a little bit there, and that doesn't look too shabby. I'm going to go ahead and combine that layer because I'm pretty confident in the product that I've got here, and then we're going to pretend like we're making this foot right here from the behind view. So we're just going to well, I actually want to thin that layer of shading. There we go. I don't know why this is a different color gray. It's very odd. But it's whatever. It's not very, it's a very subtle change, but it's a change regardless. So now we want to go ahead and finish with this shine. Grab my pen tool because it's a little skinnier. Okay, and last but not least, the shading. We definitely want to capture that as we did previously. And then we're just going to basically do what we did with the first shoe that we shaded. There we go. Not the prettiest looking thing. I think what I want to do in order to make it look a little bit better is kind of make it skinnier. Yeah. I also want to make that shading or the shine a little bit skinnier as well. There we go. Well, I went too far. Okay. So, oh, no problem. We're doing some boring stuff at the moment. Just creating the assets that we lacked from the last time. Only thing that's changed is teeth and eyes and shoes. So in traditional fashion, we're gonna have to make everything invisible that we're not using and save the bits that we just made. Alright, so I want to go ahead and duplicate the layers that I want to save. And this would be inside view foot. Go ahead and save that. Save that. Don't need that no more. And let's go ahead and duplicate the outside foot. Let's bring that up and enlarge that. It's very, very important that you save everything separately. That way they are, when they're dragged into the program, they're listed, or the animation software, they're listed as individual pieces that you can use as like a skeletal system. So this was outside view foot. That's saved. And finally, we want to do backside view. Duplicate this layer, grab it, expand it, file, save as, and then we're going to put back of foot. Make sure it's a PNG. Bam. Done with that. Okay, I think that actually concludes everything that I need for this character specifically. So as I mentioned earlier in the stream, I may end up opening up a new file completely and working on individual mouthpieces and hands. And these are, when I say individual mouthpieces and hands, these are going to be universal hands that I make for stupid flies. These are going to be individual pieces that are universal to whatever character I make. So what I'll end up doing is doing the outline of the hand or the mouth, and then I'll make a transparent shading layer, and then I'll just leave it at that, as that. Save that as a project file, and that way for whatever character I'm building, I can come in and give them a skin tone underneath those layers that we've already done, export those pieces as pieces for that specific character, and then proceed to animate. So what I need to do is open up my references. I've got a few of them here. Yep, Exidium references. And let's look for the hands. I think this picture might be it. Yes, this is the picture that is it. Alright, so I'm going to switch views here just to show you what I'm seeing. Huh, and that's not working. Well, let's do it this way then. Let's open up a blank page and then just drag there we go. Alright, so this is what I'm seeing, and this is probably what I'm going to end up referencing. I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and do all of these, because I'm relatively certain that I don't need all of these. But I'm going to probably use some of them. I'm just now realizing that this reference sheet that I've grabbed, it doesn't really contain, okay, so there's one view of the backside of the hand, but it doesn't contain a whole lot of backside views like I needed it to contain. I really needed a fist like this view, I needed a hand like this view, I needed that. So it's got some of them. I don't know, it's difficult to say. Never gonna know until I try it, so. Alright, let's just open up, let's just do, well, first let's save this. Save as, and then we're gonna save it over itself. Yes, overwrite, and then file new. Okay, now that we've got blank piece here, I can go ahead and just start referencing those hand pieces. Oh man, this is going to be really difficult because I'm not quite sure which pieces that I really need. We're going to open it in Sketchbook. That way we can just kind of pick apart the pieces that we need. And it is this one. Yep. So interesting. We have a lot of good stuff here, but it's really excessive. It's not really what we don't really need all that much. That's the biggest problem, is that we don't need everything that's here, and it's what we're gonna need to do is separate it into pieces that we need. So I'm certain that I need this piece right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and copy that and paste that so it goes to a different layer. We do need a side piece. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this as well and then copy it, paste it. We need the back of the hand. We need the very back, so let's grab this one, copy and paste. And then what else are we missing? So we have front, side. Oh, we need the this angle. So the angle that's the closest to the thumb. So like this. Actually, what I want to do is grab this one. This one looks a lot better in my opinion. So what was the side view one that we had? Oops. We had... Okay, so there's a couple of layers that just didn't get copied. Right, so we'll start over, I suppose. Yeah, side. Copy that. Paste that. Go back to this layer. So we have the inside of the hand. We have that side. Oh my god, I'm not trying to do that. There's that piece that we needed backside. Okay. And now we need the side that is a side view that's with the thumb closest to us. This will probably do. I think this is the best we're going to get right here. If I see something else that's better... See, what I'm concerned about is, like, I want my models to have dynamic range, meaning that these flies are so annoying. I have to get like some type of fly trap or something later within the week to deal with these motherfuckers. Like I was saying, I want my hands to have dynamic range, and therefore all my models be able to pull off any of these hand positions. use Windex on those flies. Does that kill them? Windex kills flies? Yeah, I think this is the best we're gonna get. So let's just go ahead and grab that then. Copy, and then paste. Alright, bam. So, all of our hand positions. Boom, boom, boom. Want to make each of these bigger. So they're roughly around the same shape. You use Windex on crickets all the time? Oh man. He ain't playing around. You come in this house, you get your ass cleaned to death. Alright. That looks good, I think. So now we're going to make a blank layer at the top, and then make this layer a little bit transparent. And then just lightly trace over, and I do mean lightly, because I don't want to copy this entirely. I want these layers to be universal, no matter which character I'm working on. So take my pen tool and just start erasing the bits that I don't need for sure, because it's only going to serve as a distraction for somebody like me. Now I don't really mind flies unless they're in an excessive amount, or if they're constantly buzzing around my head and landing on me and shit. Like, that gets so freaking annoying. Like, if they would just leave me alone and, you know, stay in their own lane, so to speak, then they'd be allowed to have a happy life here. But no, they want to fuck around while I'm streaming and cause me to say, all right, your life has an expiration date now. So if it were a huge pest problem like roaches or something like that, no, I'd have to do something really major. But it's just flies. It's just the average house fly. Okay. Yeah, so if you're just now tuning in, these hands are going to be universal across the board for any character that I use, no matter what character it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to basically trace the figure of these hands and then do a static and transparent shading layer, and then save that. That way, whenever I need to come back to grab it, I can just apply whatever skin tone or tone of the character that I'm using, and then add more detail, whatever, and then save those components individually for the character that I'm working on at the time. Because there's going to be a lot of characters. I mean, I've already made 3 different characters, and so, you know, there's 3 different skin tones. So the purpose of me making these hands is to, you know, just form a baseline for whatever character is using these hands, and then add the skin tones later as I need the assets for animation. And I'm gonna go to my blank layer now, and then we're just gonna we're not gonna completely trace it. but we are going to do the best that we can to make it look as presentable as possible. Okay. I think I will leave a gap, that way whenever I do the skin tones, it's just there for me to use as I wish. It'll make a lot more sense once you guys actually see me get to the animation phase. But I am not going to go completely in with that thumb, because I really just want to focus on the inside palm at the moment. Again, with the fingers, just focusing on the palm right now, not doing anything too serious. Of course, we want to add a little bit of wrinkles here. And depending upon what type of model it is, like if it's wearing a glove or if it's got a robotic hand, whatever's going on, I may come in and erase some of these details, but I'm thinking that in most cases, the hands are going to be exposed, and even in the case of them wearing a glove, the details will go through. The details of the glove will, or the details of the hand will be shown through the glove. So not a whole lot of detail I want to capture here, probably a little bit like that, like so. Okay, so that's the inside of the palm, and I'm really not sure what to do with this one. I think what we want to do is start off like this, and then provide area for the pinky to be put there, and then just start doing that like that, really. Same deal. I mean, just kind of like draw the, like where the knuckles should be. And then finish it off with like the index finger and the overall outline of the hand itself. Doesn't look too bad. So I looked up hand. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure. I always use Bing search. I don't really use Google, because Bing will reward you for your searches. You get, you know, like just different stuff that you get to choose from. And so I know that I use Bing search to look up what I think is probably hands.png or hand positions. And I just really searched online until I found some positions that were useful to what I'm doing. And, you know, as I said earlier in the stream, I don't want to trace entirely. I just want to get the pieces that I know for a fact that I need. Taking a little bit off where I need to take a little bit off. See, I kind of don't like the way that looks, though. It doesn't look like a very convincing hand. So let's take even more off. of these details. And this is where I start freehanding a bit, because sometimes I don't agree with the reference models that I pull up. Now I do very well feel like the knuckles, like the creases, drag all the way down. I mean, you can see that detail in a normal hand. So I am going to want to try and put those details back, but I want to reposition them so that they fall in line a little bit better and become a more convincing hand. I think what I actually need to do is, because that hand that we traced was actually kind of cartoonish, so I think what we really need to do is bring out the outline a significant amount more. Yeah. So yeah, we're definitely gonna bring out the outline of the hand a little bit more. Probably not that much. Um, and this just gives us more space to work with the details. And this is essentially what I've had to do for all of the things that you've seen me make components for so far. I also want to make, so I'm going to make a line and then use that as a basis for the detail. And just take a little bit off, bring it to a sharp edge. So I want this line to come to a point. And then get thicker up as it goes. Okay, so straighten that out a little bit and then make it longer. Let's see how that looks. Turn off the trace layer to see. See, now it's looking a whole lot more convincing. I'm still kind of a little bit iffy about that whole outline right there, but honestly, I'm a lot more satisfied with it now than I was. So we're going to go ahead and copy what we just did. Use the lasso tool. Save ourselves some time. Copy that, paste it, and then make this a little bit more angled. And since it's on a different layer, it's allowed to overlap a little bit. And then we just erase the bits off of it to make it fall in line a little bit better. And there, now you have that view. Well, the view that we're looking at is, you know, imagine we don't have any fingers put down here at all. So, you know, the fingers are gone, but we have that view. So, we'll combine that layer and then go right back to tracing the bits that we need again. So, I'm going to leave a lot of area because I know that I'm going to come back and insert fingers. And because I'm doing that, I'm not going to close that hard outline gap. What I want to do is just start off by finishing off like what would be the inside palm view. And it's very, very important to me that the part that I'm working on right now reflects the other side of the hand, because it's a rule of thumb as an artist that when you're making something that is eventually going to pivot and spin, that you want to think about it as a three-dimensional object. And so you always kind of want to be, the best way I can explain this is just like doing like this, making a box, then making a box, and then I mean, you guys have probably seen this in elementary school. It's very basic art, but you want to think of your objects as three-dimensional. So even though you're working on the front-facing side, which is, you know, this area, oh well, that's really big. So even though that's this area right here, you always want to be conscious of this back area right here. So if green represents the front-facing side, then blue is the back-facing side, and all of this area that I'm working with right here is basically the other side of the hand, which will end up being this portion right here. Yeah. So that's how you always got to think, especially with animation. Like if you're doing animation that is going to be 2D, regardless of whether or not it creates the illusion like it's 3D, you still need to be thinking about objects like they're 3D. So I'm always kind of like, in the back of my mind, I'm kind of thinking about what I can do to make this model look convincing in a 3D space. So, with that little art lesson out of the way, we can go ahead and start putting more detail into this hand. And this for me is just a guide, to be honest. Like this whole picture that I've got in the background, it's just a guide. It's not meant to fill in all the details that I need. And now I just want to dress this up a little bit. Oh, need my line tool. What am I doing? Yeah, it's not meant to have all the details that I want in a hand necessarily. It's just a guide to show me where things are gonna go at the end of the day. I also still don't like this line too much. I don't know, it's like, I can't disagree with it because the hand is shaped like that, although I feel like it, like looking at my hand personally, I feel like it goes out a significant amount more around the knuckle. So we're gonna, this is one of my biggest problems with any work that I do, is that I can never get satisfied with what I'm doing. Again, I need my line tool. What am I doing? So it feels like a natural hand is going to expand out a lot more around the knuckle range. And so that's what I'm trying to simulate right here. And we're going to see if that looks a little bit better. See, that looks a lot more convincing to me. And now I'm going to dress it up and take off a little bit. Much better. That's much more convincing to me. Yeah, that's what I ended up doing, is thinning out that line. I may need to actually thicken it though, because I'm afraid that if I import it into my animation software, it won't be visible. So just gonna go ahead and work on the detailing. And there you have it. That's how you make the side view of a hand. That took a lot longer than expected. I still didn't get rid of this box. We're gonna go ahead and do that. don't need that anymore. Alright, so now we want to move on to the back side view of the hand, which I don't really agree with the reference model that I got. So I think I'm going to go a little bit out of the lines here. Probably a lot more out of the line. Just provide a lot of surface area for that thumb to extend outward. Yeah, there we go. See, that'll look a lot better when I actually insert the thumb. And then we're going to work on the details of the knuckle. Knuckles are actually like one of my favorite things to draw in a hand. I don't know why, it's just the curvature of it. It's just a little, I don't know, it brings like so much like personality to the hand. This is already starting to look a little bit odd to me, so we'll see how this looks after I finish the general outline. It's looking like something out of Mickey Mouse right now. Could just be me. Could just be being really, really hard on myself. Now what I want to do is, because I know that I'm going to be putting fingers here eventually, is kind of erase some stuff off of here. Yep. Not going to erase everything, but definitely getting it ready for finger insertion. I know that might excite some lady audience members. Yep, I'm going to hell. Alright, and then again, gonna erase some area for the thumb to be inserted at a later date. And let's see how that looks. So that's going to be the back side of the hand. Now I need to go ahead and add the detail of the knuckle, or the knuckles. Not too bad. Not too bad. Not too shabby. Kind of like that. Well, it's like I said, knuckles are always my favorite part of the hand. And it's odd because when I first started drawing hands in elementary school, knuckles were like one of my least favorite things to do because I felt like I could never get them right. This hand also looks a little bit thick too, a little bit too thick. I keep thinking to myself that I need to trace the model that I'm looking at, but I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to make a more realistic proportioned hand than what I'm being shown from this model sheet. So Alright, now for the final piece that we need, I'm actually going to grab this, copy it. Who followed? Somebody's following. I didn't see who. Ishigo V's Bayuko. Wow, that's a Japanese word I can't really pronounce. But thanks for the follow. Copy that, paste that, and then we're going to flip that layer. Mirror it. Okay, so I'm not exactly going to do the same thing because I think we can all agree that it's not the same thing. So what I need to do is actually make this layer transparent too, and then probably cross that out. So this is actually the view that we're looking here. Yeah, I'm familiar with Bleach. So the view that we're looking here, or the view that we're looking at here, is the view of the thumb, where the thumb would be, and the side portion of the hand. And it's not going to have the same details that that side has. It's going to be a little different. Alright. I think I do need to look at the reference for this. So I'm just going to kind of wing it and see how it goes. It's not what I want to do, but at the same time, I'm not too sure of myself, so we're going to draw surface area for the thumb. And I don't like that. Don't like that. So again, surface area for the thumb. The thumb occupies a lot of space in the hand, naturally, given the fact that it's the biggest finger on the hand. And then we're going to go probably like this, and then curve around. And that bit is going to go up. Now the flies are landing on my face. See, that's really annoying. You know, I don't... I think I know what's missing here. We need to take a little bit off the top. I think I know why I don't like it. It's because there's a crease here. There's a natural crease in the hand. And it's this crease right here that we're going to try to replicate. And I'm going to have to come out and thin these lines so they don't bother me so much. Speaking of flies again, so the other day, I know I said this last stream, but it happened again. The other day I made coffee, and a fly, as I was like mixing the sugar in and everything, a fly landed in it, and I was upset naturally. but I figured, it only landed in there for a millisecond, and I took the spoon and kind of like uh, scooped it out so I could still salvage the coffee. Ugh. And I was like, I felt really bad about drinking it. I didn't want to drink it because of a fly. It's just kind of nasty. But I scooped it out because I made a whole I made a whole mug full of it, and so I didn't want to waste it. So I scooped that fly out, threw them out. I'm like, no way, I'm letting this good coffee go to waste. I go back to sit at my computer desk, and between the trip from the kitchen to my desk, the next time I went to go get a drink, I had realized that another fucking fly had flown in. They love to commit suicide on my coffee, and I hate it because they make me waste so many bowls of coffee. That's another reason why I need to address the fly issue as I play disc jockey with the hands. That was not intentional, by the way. I was trying to zoom in and zoom out. I hate that that feature is so close. But yeah, man, flies really irritate the fuck out of me when they're like I said, I don't mind flies, but if they're just gonna get in the way and they're just gonna bug the shit out of you, they gotta go. They gotta go. So yeah, I was pretty upset about that. I had to pour out that entire cup of coffee thanks to those assholes. So I have come to the conclusion that I've been um, too nice of a host. And it's ridiculous because I mean it's winter anyways, so I mean you're gonna have that issue with flies in the house. Suicidal crickets in the toilet. That's a new one. That's actually pretty funny though. Not gonna lie. I wouldn't care. I'd just go in every morning and piss or shit on them and not give a shit. If they want to commit suicide in the toilet, man, that's their prerogative. I can't understand why a cricket would jump into a full body of water like that. Maybe there is just like this cheating cricket epidemic where all of the wives of the male crickets started cheating on the men, and they just decided to all commit suicide in like different day intervals. Oh, great. That is great. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of this right here. Man, I don't think I'd be so kind with crickets though. I think crickets would annoy me more than flies, because like I said, flies are just house flies. They're not they're not too bothersome, but unless they're landing in and around your face or in your coffee, that shit is so annoying. But crickets, that's a totally different story. I don't know if I'd be able to manage having crickets in my home. I think that would get a little annoying. And Yeah. I mean, I'm not, it's not like I'm against bugs. It's just, there's certain bugs I'll tolerate just being around, crawling around, doing their own thing, like houseflies are a dime a dozen. Uh, but like crickets, especially roaches, I had to live one time with roaches at my ex-girlfriend's house. Oh my God. I tell you what, every time I went to the kitchen, because I'm a night owl anyways, like I have problems sleeping, and I would get up in the middle of the night, it'd be like 3 a.m., and I'd want to go to the kitchen to make myself a sandwich. And I mean, by this point, my stomach was really growling. And when I went into the kitchen, like just around the sink area, you seen like an entire fucking city of roaches just scatter. And it was the most obnoxious and disgusting thing. I was like, I'm not even fucking hungry anymore, forget it. And I just go back to the room and wait until the next day. It was unbelievable. And they had such a problem that they never addressed it either. Like they didn't do anything about it. It's like they didn't care. I mean, I understand not caring about houseflies, because I mean they're houseflies, but it's roaches. That's fucking disgusting. They're harbingers for diseases. Not like a housefly can't get you sick. A housefly definitely can get you sick, but it's not on the same. I think that there's layers of disgust, you know? Like if you can measure disgust with a thermometer, that a housefly might be towards the bottom because you have to deal with them everywhere you go. They're all around you, and they're not quite as sickly as cockroaches. Cockroaches are just repulsive. Beetles, I'm okay with. A lot of people are super against stink bugs. Again, stink bugs is like something that I'm really only gonna kill if it's in my way. Like if I see it in the bathroom, like ceiling or whatever, I'm just like, you know, do you, man? Just don't come. You know, I'm kind of like a bear. You know, leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. But if you don't leave me alone, we got problems. You got to get out of my house, or you got to get dead. So yeah, I'm definitely not gonna tolerate a house of cockroaches. And because I have arachnophobia, like the actual arachnophobia, I'm not scared of the spider. I'm scared of the feeling that it induces. Like it induces a like when I see the scuttling, you could probably even do that motion with your hands, and it would trigger that response within me. It triggers a crawling underneath my skin type of feeling. So spiders, no matter the size, I just can't deal with them because of the paranoia that it induces. Um, I'm trying to think. What I would love to do is I would love to find a praying mantis in the wild and just set it loose in the kitchen if I had a really bad bug problem. Because how else do you get rid of pests? Well, you introduce a natural predator into the environment. So, and I definitely don't want that predator to be spiders. So, and plus spiders leave cobwebs as well, which is just not good for the cleanliness of the house. So, definitely not going to be introducing that type of predator. Alright, so now that we've got the hands, or the palms, I think what I'm going to do is probably do some shading. So I want to grab a different color, and it's not going to make a whole lot of sense to you at first, and that's okay. It doesn't need to make sense. We are actually done with all of our reference layers, so I'm going to go ahead and delete those. Man, I can't, I just can't deal with spiders in general. They induce that crawling underneath my skin feeling, and it's more of the actual arachnophobia than what people claim. Like people claim they're afraid of spiders. Usually, if that's the case, it's not the actual um, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not actually arachnophobia. You know, the actual version of arachnophobia is that physical response, like a knee-jerk reaction. It's like if you hit somebody's knee and their body just naturally responds to it by kicking. That's really what arachnophobia is. So I'm using red for the shading, and like I said, it's not going to make a lot of sense to you, and that's fine, because it will make sense to you by the time I'm done. I sometimes do this if I'm working with a model that's transparent. It's not something that I do too often. And shading is a very delicate thing to me. I feel like if it's done right, it looks great, and if it's done wrong, it just ruins your entire picture. So you might see me focusing just a little bit more than normal. So my friend, I met a friend on Warframe. It was a long time ago. I'm not sure if he would appreciate me mentioning his name on stream, so I won't. But he had a fear of sharks. Like he didn't want to talk about them. He didn't want to see screenshots of them. He legitimately just didn't like them. And we were such assholes to him. Like, he had an online girlfriend who he met basically through me, and they were playing Resident Evil 6, and there's a co-op mission where you have to fight a giant zombie, which I guess you could call it a zombie, a giant zombie shark, and oh man, the noises he was making was just delightful. We were assholes for putting him through that, but it was laughter fuel. It definitely was. It was good laughter fuel. I had a great time with that. A little bit more than what I should have. It's never good to have fun at your friend's expense when they genuinely fear something, but I couldn't help it. And plus, I wasn't the one that was doing it. It was his girlfriend who was doing it, so she's the asshole, not me. Oh man, he was making some very anti-masculine noises. And he's like, I don't want to play this game anymore. Oh, it was great. So good. And I think at the time I was trying to play a video game myself, and I couldn't focus due to the laughter that he was inducing onto me. Oh. Man. No, it's definitely not cool when you've got a legitimate fear and people play off of that. Because I just live by the motto, do unto others as you want done unto yourself, and I definitely wouldn't want people taking advantage of my fears like that. That'd be very cruel and unusual. All of this red in due time will make sense to you guys, so just bear with me as I knock it out. You will understand the method to the madness eventually. Uh, man, it's like I said, I don't like doing something to my friends that I wouldn't like having done to myself. So there was one time my friends and I were making like a kind of like a Jackass type of home movies. I have no idea where that camera is, so I've lost the movies altogether. But I'm kind of glad that I lost the movies because a lot of them were cringy, really cringy. But there was one in particular where I was taking a shower and they dropped a mousetrap in on me. That was probably the most harsh um, practical joke I think anybody's come up with because, well, that could have landed any number of places and been a really bad deal. It landed on my hand and just snapped it. It didn't snap completely. It didn't clamp my hand, but it snapped enough to bruise the top portion of my hand, and so I was upset. I was more upset about the possibility of what it could have landed on, if you know what I mean. Because I mean, mousetraps can break fingers. They're designed to break the necks of a mouse, and hello, mice can get under doorways. So I wasn't very happy about that practical joke. That one was pretty shitty. But other than that, um, we did do a lot of funny stuff on that video or the videos that we recorded. Like we went to Walmart one night and we got butane and we sprayed that butane on the road and we wrote dumbass with a lettering and we lit it on fire. And then the funniest part of that night was the fact that, well, we always used to play tricks on each other and say, cops, and then we'd all take off running. But on this night, when my friend Ronald said cops, he really wasn't playing a trick on us. There really were cops, and they had just seen that entire scene of us lighting the highway on fire. And so, because we already started running, because we thought it was a joke, we had to continue running when we actually seen the lights, the blue and red lights. And that night, I can just tell you exactly why that was hilarious. Is because our friend Rusty, he was as high as a kite. He was running alongside Ronald, and Ronald jumped over a fence and just cleared it, completely cleared it, like he was a part of the track team. And Ronald was so high that he ran straight into the fence and knocked himself out, completely unconscious. Matt was another one who was really high, and so he was sitting on my porch the entire time. He wasn't involved with what we were doing, but he was there with us. And the cops walked up to him, and he just sat there. He didn't like try to run or anything. So I actually dove underneath the car of a nearby garage, and surprisingly enough, they never found me there. I threw my camera in the bushes. I'm glad that they didn't find the camera, and I'm also glad that they didn't find me. But my dad woke up later that night, and because the cops were in the front yard talking to Matt, and he made us basically turn ourselves in. But the police said that they weren't going to charge us with anything just because they couldn't prove that we had actually done it. We had just actually come forward, and for that reason, they just demanded that we go clean it up, and everything would be okay. Well, when we went to clean it up, it's butane, so it burned away, and the weather, like it had rained and everything, so it had basically just cleaned itself up. So by the time we went to go clean it up, it was already gone anyway. So Interesting story. Um, it was definitely a moment I'll never forget as a teenager. We were really wild, really wild kids. I would have hate to have had to have been the father to a child that was that fucking insane. But I know that I'm probably gonna have that problem with my daughter. I know she's just gonna be, a wild child, and it's gonna drive me insane. But oh man, I have so many. I did like rush the details of that story quite a bit because, I'm trying to focus on drawing. But there was a lot more to that night that made it a way funnier than just that. There was a lot of stuff that was going on. Um, that night was hilarious, really funny. I mean, we some of the butane that we got, we used for bamboo sticks, and we lit them on fire and had flaming bamboo wars, I think is what we called it. That was hilarious. Seeing Rusty have a flaming bamboo fight with Chris. I won't soon forget that either. Um, and how we acquired the bamboo sticks was I'm pretty sure there was a guy there who was locally growing them, like growing the bamboo, and we stole it out of his front yard, and he like caught us in the act, and we took off running. Like I said, we were troubled kids. We were very, very troubled kids. But I mean, we were bored. It's I used to live in Mena, Arkansas, so there was just flat nothing for kids to do. And so, what are kids gonna do when they have nothing to do? They're gonna become mischievous and get into trouble. So, I'm basically borderline blaming that entire town for not having something for the kids to do. And I don't know how my audience feels about religion, but I'm totally against it. I hate the concept of religion and subscribing to a specific belief because a lot of the times it's just fallacy. And Christianity over the years has been proven to be a tool for pastors to use to kind of cattle people, goading them into believing something that's it's essentially just an imaginary friend for grown-ups. But I don't disagree completely with the teachings of Christianity. I think that it instills good morals at an early age, so it's important to children. But then once you grow up, you kind of got to realize that they're just fairy tales, like any other nursery rhyme, and not take it so seriously. But continue to love your neighbor, etc., etc. Be a good person, blah blah blah. I don't have to. I shouldn't have to explain that. But aside from that, my point, the reason why I'm talking about Christianity is because Mena, Arkansas, and all of the surrounding areas were like a Bible thumping area. They literally tore down a skating rink for the kids to make room for a church. And I was so upset about that. I remember I was in the 3rd grade at the time, and that was the dumbest fucking thing that they've ever done. And it's still to this day one of the dumbest things they've ever done. This was in Hatfield, Arkansas. And it was a skating rink that everyone went to. It was popular. It was booming. My cousins first took me there, and that was one of the best memories I've had with my cousins. And one of them has passed away since. And I'll never be able to relive that memory. I'll never be able to go back there and skate or take my daughter there. It's just really sad that they prioritize shit for the kid, or they prioritize another church. And I'm pretty sure that town specifically had it already had 4 churches. It didn't need another church. It's ridiculous. The population was only 500. What are you going to do? Split those 500 into 4s? It's just ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. that town has its entire fucking priorities set wrong. Like, you definitely never want to try to sacrifice a skating rink for a church. Maybe if your town doesn't have a church, then it's okay, but Hatfield, Arkansas already had 3 churches. And I understand they were all different types of churches, like some of them were First Baptist, some of them were Methodist. Who cares, man? You've got one church. Get with it or get out. Leave something for the kids. Fuck, that's why they're getting in all this trouble. That's why there's so many drug overdoses each year, is because the kids have nothing to do. They're doing drugs. There's there's teen pregnancies. They're like, you're sitting there wondering, oh, what's wrong? Why are kids behaving like this? Because they have nothing to do. It's obvious. I always the boring good kid, so I don't have many good stories like those. As for religion, I am a Christian, but I'm not what you would call a cult way. I believe in God. I believe in people, karma. Well, as a writer, I've independently studied a lot of different mythologies, and I don't necessarily believe in any one in particular, but if I were going to believe in a mythology, I would definitely believe in a religion that featured a family of gods rather than Christianity, which tries to tell you that there is only one there's only one God and there is only one true God, blah blah blah. The thing about Christianity is that it's out of all the religions I've studied personally, in my opinion, it's the most hypocritical. It's the only religion, one of the only religions, that tries to tell you that there's one God, when literally every other religion tells you that there's a family of gods. I can go on and on and on and on and on and on about the hypocrisies of Christianity. It has a whole book of it. I mean, even just the Old Testament, like compared from the Old Testament to the New Testament, one version of it says that if you're gay, you're going to hell. And then in the New Testament, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter if you're gay. Well, make up your fucking mind. It's literally just been an instrument, a tool for people to use to try and get people to fear God and then stay in line. But it's in this day and age, it's obsolete because you're not gonna corral people the way that you used to do in like the 1950s. It's just not gonna work like that. So using it as a tool anymore. And also, I think it's really supremely bullshit that like the pastors that you see on TV, like fucking Hallmark Channel or whatever, they're exempt from taxes. They don't have to pay taxes. And they live in like million and trillions of dollar high class mansions and shit, while the rest of us are in poverty. It's just so, like, taxing the churches has been something that we've needed to do for a long time. And I would vote for the next president who decides to tax the churches. Like, if he comes out with his campaign and he says our first order of business is going to be to tax the churches, and regardless of what church it is, if you're a religious establishment, you're getting taxed. I would vote for that president, like straight out the bat, or straight out the gate, because that's something that just needs to happen. I'm fed up of seeing churches get to profit from nothing. Like, this country was formed because of it was just a religious country, but we did this thing called the separation of what is it? What is the word I'm looking for? Church and state. So we did a separation of church and state a long time ago, and we haven't really abided by that in terms of financially. Like, we haven't financially abided by the terms of separation of church and state uh, since the Revolutionary War. That's a long time to stick to a tradition that's just, it's beyond obsolete at this point. It's just disgusting. So, trying to mimic what I did on the other side here. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Everybody has the right to believe whatever they want. But at the same time, I also kind of feel as though it's my responsibility as a person to do everything I can to educate my fellow neighbor, my fellow brother, sister, whatever. And that's why I go out of my way to state the hypocrisies of Christianity. I'm not trying to do it obnoxiously or anything. I really just want to educate people who don't know that Christianity has it's been caught in several lies. It's been used as a tool. It was a dead religion. Like, this is a history lesson. This actually did happen. In case people are thinking that I'm bullshit. There was a man by the name of Constantine who fought the kingdom of Tudor for the sake of Midland, and at the time, Christianity was thought to be a dead religion, or a lost religion at the very least. And when Constantine took the throne, he ordered that the Bible be redone. And so I don't know how many hundreds of monks were, because they didn't have copy machines back then. You know, this is like the 1200s. So everything that they copied, they had to hand copy, and so they ordered like 100 or so monks to copy the Bible. And what it was is it was just fairy tales, like family fairy tales passed down from generation to generation to generation, and that was what was comprised of the Old Testament, which saw Satan as the enemy, which he's not. Satan, the word Satan translates to the adversary, and he's a necessary adversary because he's the accuser. He accuses the guilty, and so he's kind of like God's garbage man. He does one of God's greatest tasks for him, and so he's not to blame for temptation of man or just stupid trivial things like they try and make you believe. And I don't like Satan being used as a scapegoat when he's essential to telling any story. He's a contrast, you know. He is yang where there is yin, and you need a little, like, you can't, as a person, your purpose in life is to be very balanced. You want to be equal parts of both sides. You want to address the darker sides of your humanity along with the good. And the bad is so important because it highlights the good. It makes having happy moments more pleasurable, and it makes you know, feeling depressed and finally getting out of it more rewarding. So and the funny thing is that Satanism actually teaches some good morals too. It basically, Satanism isn't evil like everybody thinks it is. Neither is demonology, and those are two separate things. I try really hard not to talk about these types of things because then people get this bad opinion about me, like I'm some type of Satanist. I don't subscribe to either religion. I'm not for Christianity, and I'm also not for Satanism, but I will willingly tell people that I've studied both. I've looked into both because I want a wealth of knowledge. I don't want to walk through life not knowing what the hell I'm talking about. Yeah, so there's also been so many, like, the Bible is the most misconstrued book probably ever to have existed, other than like Hansel and Gretel. Hansel and Gretel has over the years had so many iterations that it's not even it's crazy. I think Dante's Inferno is another one that's had many different interpretations, but regardless, you don't religion when it comes to religion, of course, you have different interpretations. Like in one version of Egyptian mythology, Amun is your god above all, and then in another interpretation, Ra is your god above all. So with these two major differences, people just said fuck it and created their own interpretation, which combines the two into and Ra. Hence where that word comes from, and Christianity is very comparable because Christianity was invented, then it faded into obscurity, and it was brought back through the Old Testament being constructed by Constantine. And that was the Old Testament that declares Satan as basically a janitor for God and condemns you to hell if you're gay. And then over the years, as they developed the New Testament, they blamed Satan for everything and said that it was okay to be gay. And that's one of the biggest hypocritical things that I've ever seen. Like, it's one thing for interpretations to kind of veer off of its source material, but it's a totally different thing to have one statement that's very blunt and to the point that if you're gay, you're going to hell. And then turn around, a few hundred years later and say, oh, it's okay if you're gay. There's still a spot for you in heaven. It's hypocritical. I can't get behind that. I can't. And I also can't get behind one God. Because all the evidence that we've ever found that suggests any type of God presence suggests more than one God. Every pantheon of gods, regardless of what religion you study, what culture, what mythos, every pantheon has a family of gods. Christianity is roughly one of the only ones that only consists of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Not cool with it. I'm also not cool with the test that God put upon Abraham. Like, if there is only one true God and God is God, then I wouldn't worship that asshole. He did so many things just to prove a point. That's egotistical. That's narcissistic. That's a dangerous amount of like lunatic. He demanded that Abraham kill his son, his own flesh and blood, to prove his faith in God. That is not only egotistical. That is psychopathic. And then he flooded all of Earth, and then demanded that Noah put all these animals on the ark to save them. It just makes no sense. It's like it's like our concept of God is playing The Sims, and he went on a really bad power trip, and he just didn't like shit and just started. I'm not gonna get into it. I will never subscribe to Christianity. I will always encourage people to loosely follow Christianity and only follow it for the morals. Do not follow it for the faith that there is one and all-powerful being, because it logically makes no sense whatsoever. All of our constructs of religion, a lot of the profound evidence that we found can also be relegated to the human consciousness. We only have access to 10 to 15% of our brain's capacity, meaning that our subconscious could be doing a lot of supernatural, paranormal things that we're not aware of, like the instance of a Ouija board. Nobody's ever proven that there is a spirit that comes forth on the Ouija board. It's just speculation that that's what's going on. What could actually be going on is our subconscious could be working through our fingertips to move the board on its own, and we just don't know it. We have no clue. That is a potential thing that's going on. The human mind is a very powerful incredible machine. And I'll throw out another fact for you that's going to be really, really interesting for anybody who is big into history or science fiction. Um, Out of all the like, you know, the DNA construct, the spiral double helix. Out of Now, I'm going to throw out random numbers because I can't remember the actual number, so don't quote me. It's probably not right. But out of all life on Earth, there's a set number of bars between that double helix. And regardless of what it is, plants, bugs, birds, bacteria, it all has a set number of bars. And there is one life on Earth, there is one life form that has one extra bar. Can you guess what life form that is? It's us. We're the ones with the extra bar. And the most craziest thing about it is scientists cannot conclude where that extra bar comes from, which means that it's not of Earth origin. Yeah, man, my interest in paranormal stuff, I believe in the afterlife. Don't get me wrong, I may not believe in God, but I believe in the afterlife. I believe that you know, science tells us that energy is neither created or destroyed. So we can prove that there's energy being transferred from our brains down through our nervous system to communicate with our limbs. Otherwise, me making this movement right here wouldn't even be possible if it wasn't between communication between my brain and my joints. So when you die, I believe that that energy's got to be transferred somewhere. So there has to be an afterlife. There has to be. Or at least a parallel universe. Maybe when you die in this one, you're reborn in the next one and you're living 1,000 different lives. And that would explain deja vu. It's definitely subject to debate. I don't rule out anything. I don't close any doors. Just because I don't believe in Christianity doesn't mean that I'm going to shut out the existence of God entirely. I think that there definitely is some type of higher being out there, but I don't think that he or she is necessarily aware of us. I think that by some mistake, when they created the galaxy and the universe, they accidentally created us, and they're just not even aware of us. We are too small. We are far too small for them to even observe. So, I mean, science, well, astronomy has shown us that there are 200 billion, or 200, I think, yeah, it's 200 billion observable galaxies in the night sky, each with their own respective 200 billion stars. And Christianity tries to tell us that God made all of that to have a special relationship with us. That is preposterous. That is also very arrogant of Christianity to say. You mean to tell me you've created all this shit, which is an excessive amount of shit, just to have a relationship with us? Nah, that's usually not how it works. When you're building a Minecraft city, you don't usually build anything outside of that city for your NPCs to populate unless you're going to fill that space with other life forms. And I mean, it's perfectly plausible that God created all of that, but he did not create it to have a special relationship with us. He probably created all of that to have, I wouldn't know, observation over the life forms that he created. That's what Egyptian mythology tells me, is that Amun-Ra created everything in the night sky so he could just watch, so he could just observe his creations at work. And at one time, he was so fascinated with them that he even created a physical body of his own so that he could go live amongst his people until his children killed him. And then he said, fuck it, I'm staying dead. Or I'm staying in the afterlife. Now, that is a very rough explanation of what happened in Egyptian culture, but you get the hint. Deja vu is an interesting topic to discuss. It could be it could have any number of explanations. I try to avoid getting into discussions about deja vu just because of how complicated it gets and how much focus it'll take away from what I'm currently doing in order for me to get on that wavelength of creativity. Because I mean, you borderline have to be tripping balls to even have a discussion like that. You have to be having like some type of I don't know, some type of psychedelic trip. But there was a story I was going to tell you about potential life being given to humanity, and it correlates to the topic that we just concluded about human life forms having that extra bar of coding in their DNA. So if you ever watch the documentary on Netflix called Ancient Aliens, it'll basically tell you that, well, it'll throw out a theory. And I've kind of added my own twist to this theory because I think it's more interesting and it's an actual story in Exidium lore. So the belief is that there was once a culture of aliens, and they were in a distant galaxy, and their technology was advanced enough that they could calculate when their sun was going to experience a supernova, and that supernova was going to fry all of their technology and send them back into the Dark Ages, which is a plausible thing because that type of situation could very well happen to us. So, in order to avoid this conundrum, they decided that they needed to align their atmosphere with gold. Gold would repel the solar flare from affecting any of their technology. And this is where humans come into play, because where else are you going to find gold in the galaxy? Earth. Earth has had an abundance of gold over the years. And so, naturally, they landed on Earth. But they were faced with another challenge once they arrived at Earth. The gravity here was much higher than what they calculated for. It was much higher than what they were used to on their planet, and so when they exited their ships, they found that they couldn't harvest anything for themselves. The gravity was way too high. They couldn't do anything. So after spending a couple of days or hours on Earth, they observed the basic Neanderthals beating themselves over the head with sticks and stones and just all kinds of shit, just fighting over food. As comical as this may be, they knew that these specialized early-phased human beings could overcome the challenges of gravity because they are native to this planet. So they took a strand of these ape-like humans' hair, went back into their ships, and genetically grafted. They basically engineered early human life. They forced these monkey-like beings to evolve overnight so that they could enlist in their help, so that they could essentially command them to mine gold for them. And this answers another age-old question. We always look to the night sky and we always ask ourselves this question, what is my purpose in life? This answers that question. This is why we feel the longing to have some type of belonging. This is why we wonder what our purpose is. is because we were literally left with a task that we were evolved to complete, that we completed, and then they just left us. But I think that concept is really cool, the theory. Even if I don't necessarily believe it, I think that the theory itself is really, really interesting. The concept of alien life genetically grafting portions of their DNA into ours in order to utilize us, to use us as a tool of harvesting the precious resources that they needed from Earth. Now, the theory extends to other things like the construction of the pyramids in Egypt, because we can conclude that the pyramids of Egypt were not built the way that our history books tell us they were. Each cube that's within the pyramids is like 25,000 tons. It's a lot, and that's highly compressed sand. Not to mention the cubes were perfectly cut into cube shapes. Now that's something that would be really, really difficult for us to achieve today with modern technology. But what's really interesting about the pyramids of Egypt is the hieroglyphs. Because even today, with technology as advanced as it is, we cannot replicate the hieroglyphs. We can't do it. With lasers, we can't fucking replicate the hieroglyphs written on pyramid walls. So you mean to tell me our history books are going to force feed us this lie that hundreds of enslaved individuals did that with very primitive tools of their time? Something doesn't add up there, folks. I think that's a big honking lie. Some type of conspiracy that was just covered up over the years. I mean, it may not be a conspiracy. It may just be something that they didn't want us to know because they didn't want us to panic. Because at one point in time, the existence of aliens was panic-inducing, and people would, you know, flat out leave their entire city in fear that aliens existed there. But I mean, society has changed so much. I think that if the government just started revealing some of the secrets that they've hidden about Roswell, New Mexico, and Area 51, that we wouldn't really even care. We'd be like, oh, that's cool. I don't think that we would panic like we would have done in the 50s. You know? Times have changed. But yeah, it's a very interesting concept, thinking about how aliens may have forced us to evolve. They didn't necessarily create us, but they modified us. And that's the theory. And like I said, it's a canon story in my writing. That actually did happen in my writing. There was a species of aliens called the Andronians, and they modified human DNA in order to get the gold. But beyond that, they helped us create the pyramids. They showed us how to live. And then, well, in Exidium lore, then Prometheans came in and kind of further fathered us into existence and showed us how to become intelligent beings. But then there was another species called the Anunnaki who came to our planet to pillage its resources in a very invasive way. They had the intention to wipe us out and then, you know, sell our planet for trade. And the Prometheans ended up fighting a war for our sake. They ended up fighting a war against the Anunnaki to save us. That is a canon story in Exidium lore as well, meaning that it actually happened. It's an element of my writing. But the theory is that whatever race of aliens modified us also stuck around a little bit to teach us some things like, construct the pyramids of Egypt, etc., etc. If I were going to become religious, that would be the belief that I would have, is that gods are no more than aliens. And it makes sense because if, let's take Asian culture, for example. Let's take the concept of a dragon. I think given another maybe 4 to 5 generations, and everyone may more likely be open to that, but I think people would still freak out. I mean, maybe. People might still freak out a little bit, but I don't think it would be as drastic as what it would have been in the 1950s. I need to actually explain this process because I'm actually ready now, but I want to conclude what we're talking about because it's a very interesting topic now. So it is theorized that whatever race of aliens came to Earth and modified our genes also stuck around to help us craft the pyramids and whatnot. But we've actually seen depictions of this battle that was fought between our alien gods and another invading race. In those I don't know what you call those stained glass windows on church or cathedral windows. I don't know what they're actually called, but some of those scenes that were, like, some of the art that's displayed there is depicting like all kinds of shapes in the sky, like diamonds and triangles, and what astronomers believe that to actually be a representation of is this battle that was being fought for our sake. They believe it to be the Anunnaki with their spaceships having a very visible war from Earth. Like, if you were alive at that point in time, basically you could see these warships doing battle with each other, and the word is that they had that war because it was a war for Earth. One species of alien wanted to protect us and nurture us, and one species wanted to just raid our planet and get rid of us. But moving on from that, there was another topic that I completely forgot about. Yeah, and still loving more of the Exidium lore. Oh, you like the Exidium lore? Well, I'm glad, because I wrote it to be as interesting as possible. Gosh, what was I going to talk about? It was something to do with the other civilization that stuck around to help us create the pyramids and whatnot. God, I'm really going to be upset. I guess what I should do is just let it come back to me naturally while I explain this process. So, the whole reason why I chose red is so that it would stand out, and my intention from the very beginning was to just turn down the transparency as I've just done, then go back to the color black, and then just turn everything black. Turn all those colors that I just worked on black. That way, whenever I come back to, oh, that was a little bit too much. I think I'm going to have to modify that with the pencil. But basically, whenever I come back to this model sheet for the hands, I can just add a skin tone and be done with it. Like, literally, that's it. Like, I just go to the layer underneath it, put the skin tone, or whatever the color that character is, and I have hands. So, there we go. It's funny how you use lyrics to describe this whole drawing lesson. All right. I still cannot remember that topic that I wanted to conclude upon. And it's really going to drive me nuts. I feel as though I will lose sleep over this tonight if I can't get it out. Um, Shoot. I hate that. When you have something on the tip of your tongue, and then you just, for whatever reason, can't remember. And it only ever comes to you when you're not thinking about it. You'll be like having a conversation later on that day with somebody, and then you'll remember, oh crap, that's what I wanted to tell that person. Too bad I'm, not in contact with that person right now. And then you catch up with them later on in the week, and then you're like, oh, I remembered what it was I was going to tell you, but now I can't remember what it was. Oh, that just drives me nuts, though. So it is on the topic of oh, that's what it was. I remembered now. I feel really good about this. So let's take Asian culture for an example. Asian mythology has you believing in dragons and whatnot. Dragons are like a staple for their culture, and the best way I can explain this is think about what life would have been like if you grew up with no technology whatsoever. Technology just didn't exist. There was no cell phones. There was no TV. There was no anything. There was no electronics. If you if you walked outside and let's say you were a farmer and you were about to go feed the sheep. If you walked outside and you looked into the morning sky and you saw a rocket ship, a literal rocket ship, a cigar-shaped figure in the sky that was blowing fire out of its tail end, how would you describe that to your families? How would you illustrate for them what you had just witnessed? If you have nothing to compare it to, you're probably going to use the explanation of a dragon. It makes sense, doesn't it? If you saw a rocket ship, but rocket ships didn't exist back at that time, you would probably use whatever you did know that you could compare it to in order to describe what you witnessed to your friends. Does that make sense? Since rocket ships didn't exist, I couldn't go up to you and just be like, hey, I saw a rocket ship in the night sky. It was crazy. No, rocket ships didn't exist, so you'd be like, I saw a figure, and it was like a dragon. It was spitting fire. It was this cylinder shape, and it was soaring through the sky, and it was spitting fire. That I firmly believe that that's where Asian culture stems from, is from this observation that man one night looked into the night sky and he saw a rocket ship, a legitimate rocket ship. Now, if that was a time traveler or an alien, I don't know. I don't know. No, I don't think anybody knows. But it's clear to me that somebody saw a rocket ship and they used anything at their time, at their point in time, to relate it to in order to describe it to somebody else. And so that's how Asian culture came to be. That's how Asian culture came to be so rich with dragons, is because they honestly did see a rocket ship. I mean, like I said earlier, there's 200 billion galaxies in the night sky, each with their own respective 200 billion stars. It's very, very possible that another race of aliens had created a rocket ship figure and visited Earth, especially at around that time. I mean, we're one of the youngest galaxies in the night sky. We're very young in comparison to everything else around us. So it's very plausible that's what happened. And that's kind of, we still see those comparisons being made today. Like when we send a rocket ship to the moon, a lot of the times we'll hear Houston over the radio say, Houston, Eagle 1 has touched down. They call it Eagle 1 because it has the ability to fly. We don't call it Eagle 1 because it's a literal eagle. It's just a comparison. It's an analogy, a metaphor. So it's not a literal thing. And so when you look at religion and mythology, you're always trying to look for what it could have been compared to at around that time. You won't get too much into the time travel theory, but you wonder what period that time traveler would have come from, like how much further in the future from us would it be? Well, there's videos on YouTube that showcase people who claim to have come from the year 3019, which is crazy. It's crazy ironic because in my original writing, like in my trilogy, I wrote the book of Eight Accursed, which at the time was known as Say 10, like say and then the number 10. And then the following book was the Golden Beretta. The Golden Beretta took place in the year 3019. And the biggest discovery that was being made in that book was time travel. There was, of course, a cure for cancer in the form of a robotic cell, like a robotic blood cell. But time travel was the most monumental discovery that was made in that era. And as I began to modify my writing over the years, as I began to update my continuity, I changed it from the year 3019 to the year 2319 because I speculated with advancements in technology that it would only take probably another 300 years for us to discover very crazy concepts like time travel. It may take longer than that, it may take a lot longer than that, but I speculate that in the next 300 years we will probably see a flying car. We already have flying vehicles. I think NASA helped fund a man who invented a flying motorcycle. Right now, it exists right now. You can go look it up. And there's machines that we can sit on with a fan attached to our back that we can literally fly on. We take a parachute and a giant fan, and we can just sit on it and fly. Of course, you have to have a lot of training for that, and you have to be certified to do so because airspace, and there's a lot of technicalities. But the point of the matter is that we can do that. It's possible right now. And that to me is very, very crazy. It's a very crazy concept that we can fly. We can do it. We can fly with smaller vehicles. It used to be that the only way we could fly is 747s, and I mean there's hours and hours worth of footage on YouTube that shows man's earliest attempts to fly, and some of those attempts were just ridiculous and comical and extremely dangerous. But now, with advancements in technology, we're achieving everything that we were seeking to do in the 30s, 40s, 50s. Technology is ever expanding, and it's blowing my mind, the things that we're capable of. One of the most interesting things that I will conclude on, and then I'm probably going to go on a coffee break, is the Tevatron. The Tevatron, for anyone who doesn't know, is a 5-mile radius facility underground, and I think it's in Utah. I'm pretty sure it's located in Utah, but I could be wrong. It could be in another state. But it's a 5-mile radius facility in a circle, and it's underground. And basically what the Tevatron is it creates man-made elements. It smashes molecules together at such a high frequency that when these molecules come into contact, they're fused together. They form I know there's a scientific term for it, covalent bond, I want to say. I don't know. Don't quote me, because it's been a long time since I've been in high school, and this stuff isn't fresh on my mind. But the Tevatron smashes atoms together, and that's how we create man-made elements, which is the coolest concept I think humans have ever invented. But it's a 5-mile long facility, and you got to think this has been around since I was a kid. This has been in our history and our science books, our textbooks for a long time. So you got to think that maybe within 300 years, we could probably reduce the size of this 5-mile long radius to like the size of a room. And so that's one of the stories in Exidium lore. In fact, if you go back to the Warframe God Builds Korra no, not the Korra, Gara trailer. If you go back to the Warframe God Builds Gara trailer, the trailer explained that we did for that, the video that we did, it explains that the Interfector is allowed to disappear, like vanish, and then reappear, 25 feet forward because he has a very small Tevatron installed in his armor, which allows him to accelerate his physical position very, very quickly. He basically performs time skips where he just naturally moves the way he normally would, but it slows time down around him. He's moving at normal rate, but to our human eye, we can't detect his movement because it just performs such a massive jump. It's like a hyperspace jump. It's like a warp speed hyperspace jump because he's colliding such a huge amount of particles together that it goes nuclear, and then that nuclear explosion is translated into energy, which propels him forward. It's very, very science-based. It's kind of like Star Trek: The Next Generation, the way that they power their warp drives. They literally collide matter with antimatter, which will cause a nuclear explosion. And then inside that machine, they contain that explosion and harvest all of the radial energy from it to power the hyperspace jump. I love it. I love the science fiction behind it. And so I wrote it into my story. I wrote the explanation for how the Interfector is able to just time jump. He's literally just performing a hyperspace jump. Now, the scientific theory behind a hyperspace jump is that you yourself are not actually moving. Instead, what's happening is that you're grabbing the world around you like a piece of paper, and you're pulling it as you move. So let me think of a good comparison to make. The monkey bars. All of us growing up knew about the monkey bars, how you grab one bar and you grab the next bar and you grab the next bar. Imagine, if you will, you performing a hyperspace jump is like you grabbing the bar, and instead of pulling yourself to the next bar, you're literally pulling the bar to you. So you haven't moved at all, but you've moved the world around you. You've completely moved it, and so you've been able to perform such a leap in distance in a short amount of time because of that pull. That's the theory behind hyperspace jump. And it gets really complicated. It dives really heavy into quantum mechanics, and if you're interested in that type of thing, I would highly recommend that you go look that stuff up on your own, do some independent research, because quantum mechanics covers a very broad spectrum of topics, anything from light refraction to parallel dimensions, like how light enters a prisma, or a prism, how clear light, it looks clear to our eye, we perceive it as clear light, how it enters a prism and then exits as a rainbow. That to me is very, very interesting as well. But quantum mechanics covers that. It covers light refraction, it covers parallel universes, it covers a very broad spectrum. Quantum mechanics might as well be an entire topic on its own. And I feel as though it's not covered as much as what it should be in elementary school. So if you haven't heard a lot about quantum mechanics, definitely go look it up and study a little bit into it. Watch some videos on it. Be a nerd, man. It's okay to be a nerd, because knowledge is power. But so what's next on the agenda? Well, it's 8:37 p.m. and I don't want the stream to run for a little more than 3 hours. So Probably what we're going to do is we're going to do the fingers for this, and depending upon how much time we got left after we get done with the fingers, we may move on to the mouth. And maybe some, I don't know about eyes. We may get around to doing the eyes. It all depends, but I need to make some coffee because I've ran out of fluids around me. I went through a first bottle already, and I the water's good, but I want something with taste. So I will be right back, and just be patient. Alright guys, I'm back. Got my cup of coffee. It's like liquid fuel for me. Very necessary to keep me focused and energized, and my brain to be working well. As I stated in the previous live stream, you will never see me drinking coffee out of anything but this. Unless, of course, this cup breaks, then maybe you might see me get another cup. But at this point in the stream, I would also like to, well, thank you. At this point in the stream, I would also like to announce that shortly after tonight's stream, there will be another video that gets uploaded to my YouTube called Warframe God Builds Hildryn Improved. In case you don't know already, the Augur mod set, the set bonus isn't working for Hildryn. I don't know if it's intentionally not working or if it's a bug, but it's not working. There's been a lot of people who have been commenting on my videos or been commenting on that video and have been talking about how the Augur set is useless. So what I ended up doing is I traded out 2 of the Augur mods on Hildryn and 1 of the Augur mods on her secondary. Now, the reason why I left 2 Augur mods on her build and 1 Augur mod on her weapon is because it's necessary. The stats that the Augur set gives you individually is still worth it. One is actual shield capacity, and then I can't remember what the other one does. I think it's range. But I mean, range from that Augur mod will scale well with stretch, and it's better than using overextended because overextended sacrifices something else. So that's what I wanted to announce. And if you've already started building your Hildryn towards a build that I've created, then you can still stick with that build faithfully. I didn't add or remove any Forma. I will probably end up formatting her again to put the energy siphon back, but I have to actually do some build testing in order to find out whether or not energy siphon is beneficial to her, because I don't think it is. I don't think energy siphon will help her. So I've got to find an aura mod to replace brief respite with, because brief respite isn't going to work as either. Yeah, it is what it is. People are making a lot bigger deal about it than what it needs to be. It's an easy fix. It's a very simple fix. If I'm gonna say anything, I would apologize for not finding this out sooner, or having my comment section show me that that's what's going on. But I don't, I don't know if it's it may be intentional. DE may not get around to fixing it because how Hildryn works is she doesn't have energy. She uses her shields as energy. So literally every mod that says converts energy used to shields isn't going to work because it's not using energy. If DE does fix that, I would be very, very surprised. I would be very surprised. And it's not because it's their intention, it's just because usually they take the laziest way possible. Not trying to insinuate that Digital Extremes is lazy. Sometimes they work hard and they push out a great update. Sometimes they don't. It's they're only human. They're not perfect. They're like everybody else in this world, and I'm no different either. Sometimes I push out a really, really well-informed God build that is just flawless, perfect. And then sometimes I make some mistakes, and Hildren was a video that was, I wouldn't necessarily deem it as a mistake. My build is indestructible. I didn't have to do a whole lot of build testing. I went into the simulacrum, I spawned my typical level 150 heavy gunners, and it took a considerable amount of time for them to put a dent in me. So even with the build, and that was before I modified the build to what it is now. Now all I have to do is break contact with the heavy gunners for, you know, a couple of milliseconds, and my shields will regenerate. All I have to do is run out of shields entirely before like the arcane mod kicks in, and then I've regenerated my shields completely. So it's it's a video that I think will address the problems that people have been complaining about, and hopefully it makes it so people stop complaining about those issues. So I will probably go back to the old God build and add a card to the video, and because it used to be on YouTube where you could just add stickers or, you know, notes, and it was just text boxes, but you can't do that anymore. So I'll have to add a card that kind of like links you to the Hildren build improved. And so that will hopefully prevent a lot of people from saying anything further on that topic. Because that's the only issue I have with commenters, is when they keep commenting the same thing over and over again that you've already seen and addressed. Because you can't expect commenters to be aware of each other. People who go to the comment section, they don't take the time to read other comments, which is something that you should do. Because if it's a video that's already gotten, you know, thousands of views, chances are you're probably already going to be saying something that someone else has said before you. So if you do decide to comment something that has potential negative feedback, you should always be weary of that. You should always be you should always start off your comment with, I don't know if anyone has addressed this or not. I'm not going to take the time to read, you know, the waterfall of cascading texts in this video, but I thought, and then follow up with whatever you're going to say. Because it's very, you never know what an uploader has to go through until you're an uploader yourself. And then you have a totally new respect for how people deal with people. Adaption, yeah. Adaption would be, I don't think it's necessary. Literally, like I said, I've build tested, and I'm unkillable. Enemies can't hurt me. And when they are able to hurt me, because let's face it, no matter what level you get up to, 150 is probably the range in which enemies will start to become challenging for you, regardless of who you are. Even if you're an Oberon player and you heal faster than they can do damage, you still have to sometimes break line of sight with them in order to give yourself enough time to regenerate and therefore kill them. That's the same thing with Hildren. Hildren is literally like the same concept as my Oberon Reforged. So if there's anyone who's watching this video who is a big fan of the Oberon Reforged, they're really going to like the way that Hildren plays. You just, adaption isn't needed. Of course, you can throw it on there if you want that extra bit of protection. Do it, man. Go for it. But just keep in mind that when you do that, you're going to have to sacrifice one of the mods that I recommended. Rather it's Stretch or Augur. I can't remember which Augur mod it is, but it's the one for ability range. So you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit of range or something else in order to fit that adaptation in there. And if that's what you want to do, you're also going to have to forma as well. So go ahead. If you want to do it, do it. I just see no need to do it for me personally, because it's excessive between all the shield mods that I have and the arcane enhancements that I have. I could see it if you didn't have the arcane enhancement. I could totally see it. If you didn't have the arcane enhancements, you probably want that extra bit of a protection. So it would probably be a logical replacement for Stretch. But you're going to have to form it. You're going to have to put a deep polarity in there, otherwise it's not going to fit. So, you know, we didn't have it. Like, you got to think, we didn't have adaption. We didn't always have adaption to use, and so we had to build without it in mind. And I think that people are starting to rely on it a little bit too heavily. I think that adaption is really, really needed for warframes that are very fragile, like Banshee, Ember. If you know, you definitely need that extra bit of of protection with those types of warframes. So I would, you know, I would try to build to include adaption in builds like that. But for, you know, for frames like Nidus and Aros, Oberon, you could throw adaption on there. You totally could. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just you don't need it. You don't need it. It's not vital to your survival. It's not a critical thing. It's not something that I think takes a high priority. But different strokes for different folks. If you want to use adaption for every warframe, you certainly can. To me, it just doesn't make any logical sense, because it's basically going to guarantee that you have to use another forma. And for me, if I don't have to use another forma, I'm probably not going to. It's not that I'm lazy, it's just, it's not needed. Why would you use something when it's not needed? So, adaption, you definitely don't, you're not wrong if you decide to include it. It's like I said. But I'm going to take it out at intermission, because my dumbass didn't realize that I still have to do a bird's eye view of this hand that we were working on. So I'm going to finish that, hopefully quickly. And hopefully I'm just going to trace over the knuckles here, and everything will be fine. Again, area for the thumb. Actually, no, it needs to extend a little bit out more. And let's see, how do we... Okay, so we have some wrinkles going on here. Whoops. No, not liking that. There we go. Yeah, I like to be overpowered, I really do. I'm guilty of that same thing. But at the same time, you know, I try to, you know, when I make builds, I try to address everything that the Warframe needs. I try to address what the Warframe is good at doing. I try to address, you know, just being self-reliant, very sufficient in combat scenarios. And a lot of the times what I come across in the form of video comments is people who say, oh, you can get so much power strength out of it if you do it this way. And I'm left wondering, why do I even need the power strength? Like, for example, let's think about someone who... Atlas. Atlas is a good representation of someone who doesn't necessarily need power strength. A lot of my critics will say, oh, you can get so much more power strength if you do this, this, this. I'm like, I know that. I've been doing builds since 2015. If you think that I don't know that, you're very ignorant. But why? My question to those people is, why would I want to build that way? Why would I want to put any more power strength than what I need? Because I'm already very considerate of all the other warframes that are being brought to the table. I know that there is likely going to be, like, especially if there's a huge mass of enemies that needs to be killed, there's either going to be a Saren present, or in low levels an Ember, maybe a Mesa. And so they're the ones who have the power strength. Therefore, I don't need to bring someone who has the most power strength. All I need to worry about is me. I need to make sure that I'm good. I need to make sure that I can fulfill my role to the team. And furthermore, am I able to proficiently solo things on my own? If the answer to those questions is yes, then generally speaking, my Warframe is ready to be showcased on a God build. I test for a lot of different things. I test durability to make sure that I'm able to survive in high pressure scenarios. I test DPS to make sure that I'm still able to kill things at very high levels. I test team effectiveness. So I test utilities to make sure that are they good at CC? Are they good at pod protection? Are they good at keeping things dead? What does the Warframe excel at? I try to take into consideration all of those things. And so a lot of people who criticize me for my builds, they don't think like I think. I guess they think very linear. And I don't want to condescend to any of my viewers. Some of my viewers are alternatively very, very intelligent. The ones who have spotted that the auger mods don't work. Well, I didn't spot that. So a lot of my viewers are very intelligent. But at the same time, there's a lot of viewers who are just like, yeah, you should be building this way, and you should do this and this. And after you have to deal with the community for so long, it just becomes asinine. There's so much toxicity in what people say. And I've been very, very fortunate. And in the early phases of my channel, I would receive death threats. I would have derogatory names shouted at me. And it wasn't cool. It really wasn't cool. But I digress. I've been very fortunate because people who follow my page and frequent it, even casuals who aren't subscribed but just tune in every once in a while, they have become very nice over the years. They've kind of toned down on the insults and the death threats, and they've made more solid comments. And on the flip side, I've had a lot of loyal fans that have been watching from the very beginning. Some fans that I've picked up over the years. And I welcome everybody to the page, everyone who can logically think the same way that I think. I think that that's a good way to think, logically. It should be the only way to think, but, we live in a world that's dominated by people who are mad that Captain Marvel didn't do well at the box office because it features a lead female, even though we've had plenty of movies that have also featured a lead female, so I really don't know what the complaint is. I don't even really want to talk about Captain Marvel because I am also furious that they casted Brie Larson. And the reason for that being is because I am a Marvel Comics fan, and one of my favorite comic book lines was The New Avengers, which featured Miss Marvel as one of the frontmen, a part of the team, like one of the strongest members of the team. And back then, they weren't as high on feminism as they are right now, which is ridiculous. Like, they act like feminism, like people who support feminism act like we've never had a movie with a lead female role. We've had so many of them. I mean, Alien with Ripley, uh, fucking Trinity from the Matrix. I don't know what the fucking problem is, man. It makes no sense to me at all. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Oh, you loved it? Well, see, I'll explain the reason why I don't like it. As you know, obviously I'm an artist, so aesthetics mean a lot to me. The way something looks is very, very, very important to me. Some people would call me shallow for having that state of mind, but Brie Larson, I remember the reason why I was so obsessed with the new Avengers and Miss Marvel was because she was sexy as fuck in the comics. And there's another hero that not a lot of people know about, but her name is Spider-Woman. And literally the way that comic introduced her was in a very provocative, sexually arousing costume. It wasn't revealing. It didn't. It matter of fact, it didn't show any cleavage at all. It didn't like most of her skin was the only portions of her skin that was exposed was around her lips. That's it, like around her mouth, and then her hair. But everything else was in a skin tight, like leather looking suit with designs on it, and just her figure, like the way that they introduced that character to us in the comic is they showed us her putting that suit on for the first time in years, and it just accented all of her curves in her voluptuous body. I was just like, I mean, I was a teenager when that comic line first came out, so to be quite honest with you, it kind of gave me a boner. For the next couple of years, I would be looking up Rule 34 on Spider-Woman, and I was the same way with Miss Marvel. And what Hollywood and society both need to realize is that that's usually how you make a first impression. There's a variety of ways to make a first impression with a character, but one of the biggest ways is appearance. And so if you don't look attractive to the eye, that's a lot of the infatuation out the door completely. You can make or break a fandom just by the way a character looks. A character has to look good, rather it's sex appeal or cool designs, whatever they got going for them. It doesn't have to be sex appeal. I'm just stating that with Miss Marvel, it was sex appeal for me. Like, I was totally attracted to that character. I was aroused by that character. And then once I started to learn more things about her and learn that she was more than just an object of desire, that she was actually a really strong character. She had a lot of potential. Like, she was stronger than a lot of the Avengers. Then I became an actual fan, and I liked the substance of the character. I liked the story, the personality, everything that went with her being a character. And social justice warriors are so focused on having a strong female lead that they don't write a very good story. And I think that the only problem, aside from Brie Larson being flat, and literally, I'm not making this up, they literally had to hire a butt double to CGI the butt into actual clips of the movie so that Brie didn't look so flat. Because you could see on set photos, she's as flat as a fucking board. And so is her personality. On some occasions, not all. But what I'm getting at here is that Brie Larson's not sexually attractive to me. I'm sure that she's sexually attractive to somebody. There's people who prefer flat-chested women and flat-ass women, and that's fine. But personally, to me, it's outrageous to me just because Brie Larson isn't sexually appealing. She doesn't have the body. She doesn't accurately represent Miss Marvel in the comics. Based off of appearance, she does not accurately represent, nor does she represent Miss Marvel outside of the comics, because her feminist logic is very toxic and very undesirable. But it's disappointing that the movie has as low ratings as it does, because I am a big Miss Marvel fan. She's not a very well-known hero, and I wanted Miss Marvel to be one of the strongest Avengers, and I wanted people to identify that she was one of the strongest Avengers and support her. But Brie Larson, man, she's done, as Angry Joe would say, she's done fucked it up. She's ruined it for so many people. The movie still could be good, in my opinion. I don't always agree with reviewers. In fact, sometimes I disagree. Like the Venom movie, there were so many reviewers that were shitting on this movie just because it didn't include Spider-Man and it wasn't a part of that storyline, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't care. I thought that movie was fucking amazing. I think Venom, in my opinion, was the best movie I saw all 2018. It was incredible. It was great. I had no complaints. There's a couple of things that they could have done differently. They could have left some information just missing so that the possibility of Spider-Man previously having been involved with that storyline was a possibility. But it is what it is. I'm not going to make too big of a complaint about it. I just hope that future sequels will see Eddie Brock or Tom Hardy working in tandem with Tom Holland. Of course, I kind of have a different opinion on that too. Whereas a lot of people liked Spider-Man Homecoming, I didn't, because Mary Jane Watson. I'm not for whitewashing. I'm really not. I definitely believe that if you can include a character from a different cultural background, that you should, as long as it complements and fits in with the story. But Mary Jane Watson was always a redheaded white woman. She was not some mixed kid with curly brunette hair. And I just don't... They did this with Michael B. Jordan on Fantastic Four as well. They replaced, Johnny... It's not Johnny Blaze. That's Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider. It's Johnny Storm. Yeah, John Storm. They replaced him with, a black actor. And it just doesn't make any sense because in the comics, Nick Fury has been black before. Nick Fury's gone between being white and being black. That's fine. That's okay to replace him with a black actor. But I can't recall a single time in Marvel Comics where Johnny Storm was ever a black man. And so I was very upset with that. I was very upset with Mary Jane being a cast, like the casting was just bad. And Flash Thompson, he's not a mixed kid either. Like all of these kids in the comics were white, and I get it. Like you want to throw in some black actors, so throw in new characters then. Agent Coulson didn't exist in the comics, and they threw him into the Avengers, and now he is in the comics. Now, because of the success of that movie, Agent Coulson has his own fucking TV show called Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's been in the comics. He's got his own TV show. He's a popular character. I don't see why you can't design an African American character and make them fit into the story where they didn't previously fit. She definitely seemed like the strongest Avenger, in my opinion, and I get the appearance factor. Like, if they ever made a Power Girl movie, I would hope the same. Get the right girl to look the part. The new Tomb Raider movie, I couldn't get behind the girl. Now the story of the man. Well, Tomb Raider is an interesting topic. I'm glad that you brought that up because the newer video games of Tomb Raider have showcased a less exaggerated bust character, and therefore the new Tomb Raider movie is made a little bit more valid. But I totally get your point about Power Girl. Power Girl has always been represented as a huge bust woman with muscle mass. She's basically like if She-Hulk and Superman had a baby. So I would think that appearance would be much more important. If Brie Larson, I don't know because I haven't seen the movie, she could be a phenomenal actress, and her acting could be spot on. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie, but I could probably disregard her lack of a sex appeal as long as she was a good Miss Marvel. But critics have been saying that her performance was as flat as her body. And so, you know, that's why I don't like the way that Brie Larson is behaving outside of the movie. And from the trailers that I've seen, I haven't seen a lot of personality. I did see a little bit. So I'm hoping I enjoy the movie. I don't really care if critics enjoyed it or not. I'm hoping I just enjoy it. And I really do hope that Marvel does replace Brie Larson. But if they don't, all I can pray for is that she does as good of a job as she can, and I wouldn't continue to be harsh on it. You know, sex appeal to me, in my opinion, is just the first hurdle that you have to jump in order to be a good superhero movie. Because you gotta think, if you go all the way back in time to when comics were first invented, writers and illustrators alike were purposely writing characters with amazing physiques because they're superheroes. They're a cut above the rest. They're like better than our athletes. They're better than realistic athletes. So naturally, they're going to have sex appeal. And I don't see why society shames that. Why does society think that you're so shallow just because you want a hero to have sex appeal? And I'm talking about all superheroes here. I'm talking about all superheroes, men and women alike. I'm not sexually aroused by men, but if I were, and even though I'm not, I can acknowledge the fact that like Jason Momoa, Henry Cavill, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, all of these men are attractive, and but you don't see anybody shaming that. Like when it comes to the case of a man, you don't see men talking about it. You don't be like, oh, that man was such an idol for all these other men to look up to. You know, he was sexy, he was strong, he had purpose. His role in this movie was revolutionary. You just don't see other men praising other males. And so I feel as though if you're gonna give one gender attention or one culture attention, you should probably give an equal amount of attention to the other roles as well. That's just me speaking logically as a writer, and there's a lot of people who don't really have the audacity to put in their 10 cents because they don't spend their life making superheroes. They just watch shows or read books about them. So I've spent a good chunk of my life writing superheroes, and there are not a lot of instances where there's like obese or incredibly thin heroes, because how could you be if you can't keep up physically with the ones who have, you know, superior physiques? Then there's not much of a story to be had there. It's clear cut who's going to win. And I mean, some of those stories are interesting. Sometimes you can write about a heavyset woman character who behaves like a superhero, but she gets completely outclassed by someone who's skinnier. And that makes the story interesting, because then it becomes a concept of having to deal with fat shaming and having to overcome these social restraints and all these adversities. That's a good comic to me, in my opinion, because it's got drama. It's because the comic's flawed that it is so good to read and so interesting to read. But yet you would hear social justice warriors saying things like, that's not right, you should never fat shame, blah, blah, blah. But it's also not realistic to live in a world where fat shaming isn't a thing. People criticize people. And we do that because we have preferences of our own. I mean, it's perfectly okay to be a chubby chaser. You know, by definition, someone who chases after someone who's fat for sexual gain. That's fine. We're encoded to have preferences. We're encoded to have opinions. We're encoded to seek out the mate that's right for us. And sometimes that mate who's right for you is fat. I like bigger women. I really do. I will like if you're a chick who is skinny, chances are I'm going to completely bypass you because I don't want a skinny chick. I want a very thick, voluptuous woman. And I mean, that's just how it is. That's my sexual preference. I shouldn't be shamed for that. I definitely shouldn't have people telling me that I'm shallow just because I'm looking for a specific somebody. I'm encoded to do that. It's my nature. We are all animals, regardless of whether we want to think of ourselves as that or not. Um, so I'm going to address the first part of what you said. It's like I said, I hope that I like the movie. I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to try to remain as unbiased as possible, despite the fact that Brie Larson has already broke immersion for me. And immersion is very important in a movie, too. I know who Brie Larson is outside of the movie, and that's kind of the problem with the movie, is that I'm going to go into the movie trying to respect it as a Miss Marvel movie, and I'm going to have a lot of difficulties doing so because of her obnoxious personality outside of the movie. So I'm going to do my best to bypass her as a person and enjoy the movie for what it is. But you didn't see Brie flat because they literally hired other women to CGI her bust and her ass. I'm not making this up. You can look this information up. Like I think not BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed is filled with social justice warriors. Who the hell does this shit? I'm trying to think what press released set photos. But basically, they literally casted someone as a butt double for Brie Larson because she is that flat. Set photos showed her ass in the costume, and she's flat. As a matter of fact, Tom Holland has a much bigger ass in comparison to Brie Larson, and it's comical. I'm sorry for laughing for anybody who might get offended, but it's comical. They had to hire a butt double. They felt as though, so this movie is being sold to us as a pro-feminist movement towards strong individual women, but yet they're hiring butt doubles, which completely contradicts the point of strong independent women. So Brie Larson is strong and independent enough to carry the weight of an entire movie on her shoulders, yet she's not strong enough to convey ass in all of those scenes. It's funny. It's hypocritical and it's funny. I can't help but laugh about it. This happened. This is factual. They hired a butt double. And so with your comment where you said, I really don't see a flat personality. Oh, you said personality. My bad. I don't know. I'm coffee, man. It's like cocaine. Yeah. Yeah, I just now corrected myself. I'm sorry. Um, I try to read as fast as possible, but yeah. Critics are saying that her personality is flat. I don't know if that's true. Um, it it could be right. It's really based off of your opinions. Everybody has different preferences. Whereas some people are gonna like her attitude, other people may not. I have to watch it in order to surmise whether I liked it or not. I mean, if it were anybody besides Brie Larson, I might like the attitude. I feel like I'm not gonna like it. Who knows? I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I enjoy the hell out of that movie. I really do hope I enjoy it because, like I said, I'm a big fan of Miss Marvel as a character, and I want that movie to do well. Um, I just can't see. I hope that they don't continue to rely on Brie Larson. Like, if they do Avengers Endgame and they have Brie Larson cast as Miss Marvel, I hope that's all they rely upon her for. And the reason why I say that is because I do want Marvel to be competent of the type of content that they're putting out and the type of ad campaigns. I want them to be aware of the effects of poor advertising. And Brie Larson has involuntarily targeted 40-year-old white males, and she has alienated that group of people, and I'm not cool with that. I don't like feeling like I'm an enemy to society just because I'm a white male. I feel like so many other movements have made me feel undeserving of my place in this world. You know what I mean? Like Black Lives Matter. Even the title to Black Lives Matter is offensive. When you say Black Lives Matter, it almost implies that every other life doesn't matter as much. So I would prefer that Black Lives Matter change the name to All Lives Matter, because that's a factual statement. All lives matter. Are you going to sit there and try to say that, I don't have as much of a say because I'm white? Now you're the one that's being racist. It's like the very thing that they're fighting to eliminate is the thing that they're guilty of. And I can't get behind movements that are hypocritical. This is why I can't get behind Christianity. I just can't get behind certain stupid shit that people do because it's hypocritical. It's taking away from a valid point. Yes, black people have been getting a lot of flack in Hollywood. I have a personal friend who wanted to become a film director, but he states that they wouldn't take him because he's black. And they said that your people don't ever become film directors. And given his age, he's 50 years old. So that may have been the case. I don't think that it's as much of a case now as it was back in the day. I know that blacks had to endure a lot of adversity that whites didn't have to. But I wouldn't chalk that up to privilege. I don't think there is such a thing as white privilege because we as white American males, we still have to hustle just as hard as anybody else has to hustle. So why take anything away from us just to give something to yourself? It's like children in a sandbox. It's like, oh, my sandcastle isn't as big as yours. I'm going to take sand away from your castle in order to build on mine. Why not just go get your own damn sand and leave mine alone? That's the way I see it. I can't be crazy. I hope I'm not crazy. I hope people agree with me. I think that cultural awareness is definitely an issue, but I think that there are better ways to address it than to shame on the cultures that haven't had so many issues over the years. If you want to give blacks more attention, great. It's like I was telling you in my past live stream, the live stream I did most recently. I'm literally working on writing a new story for African mythology just to teach African Americans about their own culture. I don't feel like there's any movie or TV show out there that has taught them about their own roots. So I want to learn about their roots so that I can in turn teach them about their own roots. And then I'm doing something progressive. I'm becoming the change that I want to see in society. That's what you got to do. If you have a problem with how things are being done, you have to be the change that you want to see in society. Yeah, I mean, it's just disgusting how people behave. I I never want to feel like my life matters less than somebody else's because that somebody else, his or her culture hasn't had it very good over the years. I agree with early phase feminism. I agree with it that like women deserve to have paid time off when they're pregnant. I agree that they need to be considered equal to the men in their workplace. I agree with all of that. I have written so many strong female characters into my story. I mean, I'm sure that not a lot of them have had as much exposure as the rest of them, but I mean, there are some strong characters in the Exidium lore. Like, for instance, Lepras Selkit. She is like the Exidium equivalent to Tony Stark. The entire trilogy would not be able to exist without her. She is an extremely important character. She is very independent and strong. She represents really what women should aspire to be. But she's also a goddess. Like, she's also a deity. So, literally, in all sense of the matter, she's kind of perfect. And therefore, she's going to have sex appeal. She's going to be vastly intelligent and outperform a lot of her male counterparts. There's a lot of things that I feel like people are going to pick apart, and they need to understand that when you're writing a character who is a godlike character, that character is usually going to be picture perfect, and they're not going to represent the typical average American female. So it's with great hope that people are aware of that and they don't criticize on that too harshly. But there's other strong female characters that are human. You have a character named Eileen Martin. She's very, very strong and very independent. You have Rose, another strong, independent woman. I mean, there's a lot of blended cultures in my writing, purposely, but it's written with intimate storylines. It's not written for shallow reasons to satisfy social justice warrior nonsense. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make a fucking character gay just to give something for my gay fan base to relate to. If my character is gay, it's because it helps the story progress. I like Walking Dead's approach. I don't know if anybody watches The Walking Dead, but Aaron is the character they introduced who is gay. And we as the audience didn't even know he was gay until he kissed another dude. And he never talked about being gay. He was just gay. Sexual preference, sexual orientation, it makes up a very finite amount of who you are. It makes up such a little percentage of who you are as a person. So I don't feel as though, as a writer, you should rub it in people's faces that this character is gay. You should probably just do it. You should probably just showcase that and lead with that. It's fine. I have a gay character in my series, but there is so much more going for him than that. He's not flaunting it in your face scene after scene after scene that he's gay. Just like Walking Dead, you don't even know he's gay until he kisses another dude. But he's got, I would say that he eventually becomes very, very important to the storyline, but he doesn't start out very important. So where I watch some videos of entitled people read by what is that word? I don't know what that word is. Where he posts and reads about entitled parents for choosing beggars and pro-revenge. It's entertaining to listen to the end result because those bad people in these stories more often get what they deserve, and it's satisfying to listen to these bad people get hit by karma. Man, I've grown to believe that I just live in a parallel universe. Honestly, I'm not bullshitting you. I really feel as though my consciousness was transferred to, you know, a place of origin to which I do not belong to, because the society in which I grew up in would not have tolerated the way that kids behave. They act, I don't know. They act very, very entitled. Shit. I fucked up. Oh, okay. R/. Alright. That's why it didn't make sense to me. Yeah, man, I just, the society that I grew up in, they wouldn't have, my parents wouldn't have let me walk around behaving like that. I can tell you that much. Why is this not working? There we go, finally. You know, my parents always taught me to do unto others as you want done unto yourself. And, you know, I was very fortunate to have good morals instilled in my upbringing. And you can just tell with so many people in today's society that they didn't have that growing up. They didn't have, you know, parents in their life that cared about their image. And it's sad, really. I don't know what else you can say about it other than it being sad. Is like, I'm trying to think of some examples of the way people behave. Like kids who get in trouble for bullying on the school bus. They come home from school and they say, "Well, Dad, you're gonna have to bring me to school tomorrow because I get kicked off the bus for bullying." They act like their father has to drop them off at school. They act like it's a right. They don't act at all like it's a privilege. And I would go so far as to say that it is a privilege. It's not a luxury that you have handed to you. It's not a fucking birthright, you know. You you have to treat people the way that you want to be treated. And if you don't, well, there's a place for you. And I just believe in discipline, man. When my daughter gets old and she gets mouthy, she's gonna get popped in the mouth. And you know, fuck anybody who says that that's child abuse. Because every time I got mouthy with my parents, I was bent over their knee. And I had my ass lit the fuck up like a Christmas tree. Had it not been for that, I probably wouldn't have come out the way that I did. So, you know, I thank my parents for doing it that way. I thank them for, you know, having the decency to parent me in such a great way. A lot of people don't feel that way. A lot of people feel like, oh, spanking them isn't necessary. It just makes them afraid and blah blah blah. I'm like, you're raising what the problem with that is that you're raising a society of victims. You're encouraging children that they shouldn't be struck when they're being naughty. That they shouldn't be punished. That they should have, you know, more easygoing methods of discipline. And I can kind of get behind that, but at the same time I can't, because then you have children that grow up that just expect shit. They're not appreciative of anything. And I feel like that's what's going on with social justice warriors, is they just expect shit to be done a certain way, and they throw fucking temper tantrums when they don't get their way. Like when Captain Marvel does really, really bad in the box office ratings, they pin it on all these bigots who are apparently misogynistic and hate women, and that's just not the case. Most people who are not behind Miss Marvel are not behind it because of Brie Larson. They don't like the way that she shames males. And I don't like it either. But I'm one of the very few that can overlook it in favor of it being a good movie, and in favor of, you know, one of my favorite characters getting some exposure, because that's what I want to happen. I don't know, man. It's an ugly world we live in. you gotta have discipline with kids. You just it's a necessity, because then they grow up and they're gonna get in trouble, and you're gonna have to pay for it anyway. Or are you just not gonna care and let them rot in jail? I mean, shit. If you don't do yourself that favor now, you're just doing them harm. That's the way I see it. You have to discipline your kids. What happens when they start like talking back to you? What happens? Okay, so if you're an average American male that Brie Larson has targeted and said, "Don't review my movie," blah blah blah. What happens if you come home from work one day and your teenage daughter or son has beat the living shit out of your wife, has like hospitalized her? Are you going to decide at that point in time that, oh, maybe it's a good idea to discipline them? By then it's too late. By then they already have no morals. They have no lack of they have no empathy for anyone. They don't give a fuck about anybody. They only give a fuck about themselves. It's too late at that point. You know, the damage has already been done. And you got to think about these things. People don't spend as much time as what they should thinking about things that actually matter. Like, we're so concerned about women having roles in movies that we've overlooked homeless veterans that are starving out in the street. Homeless veterans who went to war for us, who are now committing suicide in America. I think that is a far greater issue than a female lead in a movie. I think that, you know, someone who has fought for your sake and come home only to have to deal with these new mental issues, and as a result lose his family and his house and his home, all because, you know, he's acquired PTSD while he was protecting you. I think that that's so wrong, and that type of issue is not getting any exposure at all right now. I saw one music video that talked about that, and it was Five Finger Death Punch, Wrong Side of Heaven. And I share that video. I sometimes go back to that video and reshare that video because I think that it's far more important that people address that issue than Black Lives Matter or feminism or anything of that nature, because it really is an issue. When someone has gone to war and sacrificed their life to protect yours, and then when they come home, all you give them is a verbal medal for their service, like, thanks for serving us. Okay, but they're still homeless. You haven't. I'm not financially stable enough to help homeless veterans. I can't, you know, give out-of-pocket money to help them, but I still spread the message that they need help. And I'm sick of it, man. I'm sick of society pandering to entitled, spoiled, rotten brat children who don't consider real-world dilemmas. Going green is another issue. Like, we definitely need to start powering our cars with more eco-friendly resources, because fuel is bad for the atmosphere. We've fought wars over fuel, and it's just no good. It's a universal problem, and these are the types of things that, you know, Twitter should be tweeting about. Social media should be sharing videos about, and we've got our priorities all jacked up. So that's a lot of the reason why I'm not so like active on social media. I try to stay away from Facebook and Twitter and all. Like Instagram, I just recently made an Instagram, and I gotta be honest with you, it was only to flirt with a chick. I'm not I'm not using it seriously, nor do I plan to, because I don't like to socialize with standard, run-of-the-mill people, because they're obnoxious. They have such a firm and stubborn belief system, which they won't let go of. They're not subject to change. They don't want to adapt. Like if I were to have a debate with you about Christianity, I would expect that you would consider my points even if you didn't agree with them. No one has to agree with anybody. You can have difference in opinion. It's absolutely fine. But I mean, when I'm talking about facts and I'm addressing things that are not subject to debate, things that actually happened, things that are written in our textbooks, then you can't sit there and say, "Oh no, that didn't happen," just because you don't like what you're hearing. And that's a lot of the people that I run into in person, they just want me to shut up. They just want me to stop talking about Christianity. And I just can't deal with people being stubborn like that. I can't deal with closed-minded individuals. Can't do it. Makes me upset. It makes me upset that they even exist. I don't have intolerance for people, but I have intolerance for stupidity. I just can't get behind people who aren't willing to change their mind. I have this mindset that I know what I know until you're able to prove differently. If you're able to come up with a good debate and show me why your point is right, and it's logical, it's not just, emotional bullshit. You feel that it's right because that's what your emotions are telling you. If you have good, valid reasoning and you can cite your facts, then I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like, for instance, I brought up the topic of Christianity to a friend of mine in Massachusetts, and he talked about God in a very, very different way to which I had never heard anybody speak of God. He said that he knows for a fact that God exists because God is not what Christianity tries to force you into believing. God is in everything. He's in the bugs, he's in trees, he's in the wind, he's in your body. And then so I stopped him there and I said, wait. So are you implying that God is like the Force in Star Wars? He's just energy? And he's like, yes. God is everything. God is everything, and yet he's nothing at all. And I'm like, see, that makes sense. See, if every form of Christianity had taught me that, then I might actually believe it. And he was certain. Like, he was, without a shadow of a doubt, he stated that I know God exists. He was confident in saying that. And I'm like, God has never been proven. And he's like, he doesn't have to be. He proves himself to people each and every day. And that was why we had that debate, and why we had it as strongly as we did, is because God literally is not proven. But by his definition, he can't be proven, because he's outside the realm of explanation in that regard. Which is a cool way of looking at it. It definitely changed my mind. And that's why I view God as a subject that could exist, but I'm not going to worship him. I'm certainly not going to worship him. I have no reason to. If there was some type of power that he could offer to me, like better control over myself, better control over my life, I feel like worship should come as a reason, like a motivational tool. That might be just me being selfish, but yeah. Well, I'm glad you're that way, but there's a lot of people out there who are totally, they don't want to hear you out. They don't want to. Everyone has a story. Everyone has something to say, and if you listen, you learn. if you don't listen, then chances are you're not going to learn anything. And I like to learn. I don't know about everybody else on the planet Earth, but I like to learn. Knowledge is power. So even though I end up disagreeing with a lot of people who tell me some shit because they tell me bullshit, they force feed me a lot of bullshit. I still listen. Still listen to everything everyone has to say. I take it all into consideration. No one person should be discredited for anything that they say. Sometimes they come up with some pretty garbage things to say, but it is what it is. So I am finally done with the palms now. Totally forgot about the bird's eye view. I feel really stupid about that. I know that I needed this perspective. So now that I've got that done, I can move on to the fingers, and we can conclude this stream because it's gone on for 4 hours now. I think it might be an actually good idea if I just conclude it here. Wait until we hit the 10 p.m. mark and then conclude it and prep it for YouTube release. Because I also still have to release that Hildren fix video. And we've covered... I feel as though we didn't cover as much progress as what we got done the last stream. But it's okay. I'm going to continue to work more on the hands and the fingers. I'm probably going to do some mouth work. I'm probably going to design mouthpieces off stream. That way next week I will have already, hopefully I would have already started animation. And so you can see the animation process. And given the fact that I am going to be doing animation, or at least I hope to be doing animation by that point next weekend, I will probably not let the stream go on so long because I don't want to reveal too much. I definitely do not want to show you guys the special guest character that I'm going to have starring in this video. It's going to be a huge surprise. It's going to take people off guard. So, yeah. That was the purpose of the hand making. I need hands and facial expressions are so hard to animate because there's so many different postures and you know finger movements, like just that motion right there. You have to tweak your model a little bit. So and there again, facial expressions are going to be very difficult to animate. So I'm probably going to end up doing a bunch of mouths and maybe a bunch of eyes. And so I'll do the shading, and I don't know if I'm going to be doing that later within the week or if I'm going to save that for next week's stream. My goal is to be ready to stream strictly animation next weekend. So if I don't meet that goal, I'm going to be pretty upset with myself. But this is what I got so far. This is the palms. We did finish the model sheet for Vashti. So everything that we did last live stream, we wrapped up this live stream. We got the teeth done. We got the feet done. Everything is done with that model sheet. So literally the only thing we lack is hands, mouths, and maybe some eyes. So I'm gonna tackle that off air, and hopefully next week we can get into animation. So this is gonna be a progressive thing. Each week that I start live streaming, I'm going to be showing more and more of the stuff that will eventually get put on YouTube. So every live stream that I do will be behind the scenes crazy stuff going on. So let's see here. Alright, then I'm going to stream on YouTube myself then. When the stream is over. Oh, you're gonna be live streaming. I would love to tune in and give you the support and check you out, but unfortunately I've got to put this new video up on YouTube and edit the and then wrap this up as well. I do need to. My goal for tonight is to finish the fingers on this at least. So despite the fact that I'm going to be ending the stream, I'm still going to be working for a little bit. So I think that's a great note to close on. I don't have really much else to say. I had the flu earlier this week, so I didn't get really anything done. I was in bed rest. It was really terrible. Um, I ended up sleeping a lot. So I was actually late to see my daughter for visitation this weekend, and so I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't get that much time with her. I spent more time talking to my daughter's mother. Um, I don't really want to talk too much about that because I'm over her. I'm completely over her. I don't miss her. It's just I hate having to deal with her. I hate having to communicate with her. I hate having her to be forced into my life. And the deal that we came to an agreement with was that uh, either she would bring my daughter to see me at the mall or she would have somebody else do it. And literally every single time that I've seen my daughter, it's been her. And I don't want to see her all the time. In fact, I don't want to see her at all, ever, for any reason. We're broken up for a reason. We're done. So I didn't get to spend as much time with my daughter because I had to walk to the mall because I slept in really late. And I lost a lot of time during the week that I could have been spent drawing and animating. But it is what it is. I'm going to try to make up for that this week. I feel pretty motivated. I may not actually get to do as much as what I want to do because this coming week I'm also supposed to get my truck out of storage and I have to go a few places. I have to be on the road for a decent amount of time. I'm not going to disclose where I'm going or why I'm going, but I have to take a brief hiatus from Syracuse, New York, and when I get back, um, and now this is all a very hypothetical if the stars align and I'm able to get my truck out and I'm able to fix it up, then I'll go on a road trip. If I'm not able to, then I'm going to stay here and I'm going to keep animating and I'm going to pump out stuff on YouTube for you guys to see. But I definitely need people to sound off on Facebook or YouTube and let me know what the most appropriate time for me to stream would be for them. And also, if you want to come up with ideas for things that we can do together when we have this time together, I definitely want to communicate with people as much as possible. I want them to be active in all the Exidium stuff that I'm doing. I want them to have a say in the matter because we're essentially building a universe together. And so the last announcement that I want to make before the clock strikes 10 o'clock is the fact that after this animation is done and I've uploaded it to YouTube, I will be going back to God Build Season 1 and I will do trailers for Limbo, Valkyr, Ash, Vauban, Wukong, Rhino, Loki. All of those Warframes are going to be getting trailers, and they're going to be getting Exidium canon trailers, meaning that each trailer is going to tell its own story, and it's going to provide an actual piece of the Exidium universe in that storyline. I will be getting voice actors to play the roles of these characters. I will be taking screenshots of my characters in Warframe and I will be running them through Sketchbook and cutting out the background so that I can make assets of those characters to rig and then animate in my animation software. So you're going to see some crazy things going on. You're basically going to see a Loki have like a Dragon Ball Z fight with a Rhino. And Warframe has way too many limitations as far as animation goes. Captura just doesn't. Captura only allows you to capture things that are capable of being done within the game. So emotes, attacks, abilities, whatever. And so once I start animating things within Warframe, I feel as though my page is going to grow exponentially because people are going to wonder, how did he get those characters to move and act like that? Well, I grew up with Dragon Ball Z, and I like that type of action adventure. I like, hyper exaggerated fights where, you know, a character hits another character so hard they go flying through a mountain and the mountain explodes, and then, you know, when the dust is cleared, they're just standing there screaming and they're angry. Like, there's going to be a lot of crazy things going on, and I think people are really, really going to appreciate it. They're probably going to appreciate it a lot more than the God Build series, which stands to be a double-edged sword for me, because I've constantly been trying to release content that outdoes the popularity of the God Build series, and nothing has been able to. So I hope that the new line of animation videos that I start doing is able to topple the God Build series and kick it off of the throne. That's my targeted goal moving forward, and if that's something you're interested in, if you're watching on YouTube, like, share, comment, subscribe, do everything I always encourage you to do. And until next time, or until next stream, this is Vance signing out. Peace be the journey, y'all.